Chapter 845. In Lei Jinshi's long life, he had never felt so close to death. LV Feng's powerful Tao sense pressed down, as if the heavens were overturning. Lei Jinshi couldn't move at all. More and more of Lei Jinshi's purple and black color appeared on his body. His Dantian's primordial spirit began to melt at a shocking speed. At this moment, Lei Jinshi was no longer a dignified late thought shatterer monster. It was like he had returned to his mortal days. He couldn't use any magic power. Under LV Feng's great supernatural powers, he was slowly approaching death. In just one breath of time, 2/3 of his primordial spirit had melted and his cultivation had fallen to the early thought shatterer realm. Plague King. Stop. Of the remaining 8 void thought shatterer elders, 4 of them changed their expressions. They stood up and tried to save Lei Jinshi. Far away in the starry sky, there was a streak of light that shook the heavens and earth as it approached. A cold shout came from afar. LV Feng. Show mercy. LV Feng's expression didn't change. He coldly looked at Lei Jinshi, as if he was looking at a dead man. A Tao sense filled with the concept of plague swept out, causing the 4 divine void thought-breaker elders to vomit blood and retreat, all of them shocked. Without giving anyone a chance to save Lei Jinshi, LV Feng formed a seal and shouted, "Dissolve." Immediately, Lei Jinshi's body exploded with a bang. Dark purple blood and flesh splattered all over the ground. His primordial spirit melted into blood at the same time. It was a miserable sight. Even in death, he didn't understand why LV Feng would attack him. Hiss. It's the Void Plague King. He killed Lei Jinshi. I heard that this person is ruthless and cruel, but I never thought I would see him kill someone with my own eyes. He killed a Void Thought Elder without batting an eyelid. Plague Tao Sense. What a terrifying Tao sense. Killing a late thought shatterer with just a thought. This is the strength of the Plague King. The 4 high platforms were filled with discussions. It wasn't until an ashen-faced old man arrived in the distant starry skies that the audience quieted down. The person was a brown-haired old man in golden armor. He was sitting on the back of a golden-scaled dragon turtle. He was emitting the powerful aura of the 5th tribulation of eternity. He was undoubtedly an immortal emperor. Once this person arrived, he immediately recalled the dragon turtle mount and landed on the high platform in the north. He waved his hand and took Lei Jinshi's storage bag. Looking at the dirty blood left behind by Lei Jinshi's death, his face turned ashen. A moment later, he helplessly sighed. He was still too late after all, it's Immortal King Xianbei. Godly Void Pavilion's #1 Immortal King. The candidate to be the next young emperor of the Divine Space Immortal Emperor. Many exclamations of shock rang out on the platform, revealing the identity of the Golden Armor Immortal King. Xianbei. Young Emperor. Ning Fan's eyes narrowed slightly. He did not expect Lei Jinshi to disregard his status and attack him in front of millions of cultivators. He didn't expect that Lu Bu would stand up for him and kill Lei Jinshi in front of everyone. Similarly, he didn't expect that after the death of Lei Jinshi, there would be another Immortal King Xianbei. Moreover, this Immortal King Xianbei was also a young emperor like him. Silence. The 4 high platforms were in dead silence. Everyone was guessing how Immortal King Xianbei would deal with Lei Jinshi's death. Immortal King Xianbei kept Lei Jinshi's storage bag. His eyes were filled with uncertainty, as if he was hesitating about something. After 10 breaths, he finally made up his mind. His eyes turned sharp. When he turned his head and looked at Ning Fan, it was as if the entire sky was going to turn into ashes under his gaze. Lu Bu, the Divine Void Emperor and the Divine Void Emperor are in seclusion. I'm the one in charge of this year's grave competition. Lei Jinshi was the 8th elder of my godly Void Pavilion. Today, you killed him in front of millions of cultivators. You must give me a reasonable reason. Otherwise, even if you are an abandoned member of the secret race, I will still punish you severely. As soon as immortal King Xianbei's voice fell, the eyes of many old monsters on the 4 high platforms were filled with shock. Only a few people in the Eastern Heaven knew about Lu Bu's identity as an abandoned member of the secret race. Now that they heard about such a secret, many of them were shocked. Lu Bu's eyes narrowed slightly. Even he did not dare to be too rude in front of immortal King Xianbei. However, he was arrogant and unruly by nature. Even when facing the Divine Void Emperor and Sun Luo, he was not too afraid. Naturally, he would not be afraid of Xianbei either. Countless old monsters were waiting for LV Bu's reply to give a reasonable reason to kill Lei Jinshi. Under everyone's gaze, LV Bu remained silent for a long time. Suddenly, he burst into laughter and glanced at Ning Fan. I can't bear to see Lei Jinshi bullying the weak. This is this old man's reason. As soon as they heard his words, the eyes of many old monsters immediately fell on Ning Fan. Even immortal King Xianbei's eyes narrowed and looked at Ning Fan. At this moment, most of the old monsters could tell that the danger that Ning Fan encountered in the Tomb Palace was related to Lei Jinshi. After Ning Fan obtained the first place in the grave competition, Lei Jinshi even disregarded his identity and attacked Ning Fan. It was also at that moment that LV Bu killed Lei Jinshi. Judging from LV Bu's words, he killed Lei Jinshi for Ning Fan. Ning Fan is just a junior. I don't believe that you would kill Lei Jinshi for a junior. Xianbei's eyes darkened and retracted his gaze after giving Ning Fan a glance. Even if Ning Fan had the potential to become an ancient immortal venerable, he was not worth mentioning in the eyes of the future divine space emperor. It's true that he's a junior, but he has another identity. He's my sworn brother. This reason is more than enough. As soon as he finished speaking, LV Bu's figure flashed and landed at the center of the hall beside Ning Fan. LV Bu's body was originally fat and ridiculous, but at this moment, his body emitted a majestic aura. He stood in front of Ning Fan and his cold eyes swept across the seats on the 4 sides of the high platform. As soon as his words fell, countless old monsters on the 4 sides of the high platform were shocked. Thousand Autumn's Demon King, Ning Fan is actually the sworn brother of Plague King LV Bu. How could such a thing happen? This is just too unbelievable. That LV Bu is a loner. I've never heard of him having any sworn brothers. He doesn't even have any friends. However, judging from LV Bu's posture, he doesn't seem to be lying. Could it be that this Ning Fan is really LV Bu's sworn brother? Immortal King Xianbei's expression immediately changed. If Ning Fan was LV Bu's sworn brother and Lei Jinshi had provoked Ning Fan several times, then LV Bu's killing of Lei Jinshi would be a sufficient reason. Even though it was inappropriate to kill Ning Fan violently, Lei Jinshi should be blamed for trying to kill Ning Fan first. This time, LV Bu couldn't be blamed. Behind immortal King Xianbei, the eyes of the 8 divine Void Realm elders were filled with shock. Even the 9th elder Luo Shi revealed a shocked expression. None of the cultivators of the Luo clan were not shocked. The cultivators of the Qin clan and the Lei clan were all fearful. In the Lei clan of the Eastern Sea, the strongest expert was Lei Jinshi. Other than him, there were only 3 Shikong experts in the clan. Even when Lei Jinshi was still alive, the Lei clan absolutely could not afford to offend LV Bu. Today, Lei Jinshi had fallen and the reason for his death was because he had offended LV Bu's sworn brother. The 3 Shikong experts of the Lei clan did not dare to imagine how crazy LV Bu's revenge would be after Lei Jinshi's death. The cultivators of the Qin clan were even more frightened. Especially the clan leader of the Qin clan, Qin Xian. At this moment, his heart was filled with regret. He regretted why he had listened to Lei Jinshi's order and repeatedly tried to kill Ning Fan. Ning Fan was actually the sworn brother of the Plague King. How could the Qin clan afford to offend such an identity? Almost without any hesitation, the 3 Shikong experts of the Lei clan and the clan leader of the Qin clan took a step forward at the same time. They cupped their fists and apologized to LV Bu, who was standing at the center of the hall. Unfortunately, before they could say their apologies, LV Bu's ice-cold killing intent had already greeted them. It's too late to beg for mercy now. I'm not an overcautious person like the Luo clan, the Battle King. Whoever dares to touch my people will die. As soon as his voice fell, a wave of Dao sense of plague that seemed to have materialized immediately spread and swept towards the seats of the Lei clan and the Qin clan. The Dao sense of plague avoided the cultivators below the Ghost Profound Realm. However, all the cultivators above the Ghost Profound Realm from the two clans had their lips turn purple in an instant. They foamed at the mouth and fell to the ground, dead. The three Shikong experts of the Lei clan and the clan leader of the Qin clan, Qin Xian, wore terrified expressions. In just a few seconds, all of them had died under LV Bu's ability. LV Bu, you. Immortal King Xian Bei was shocked. He was about to reprimand LV Bu for killing again. LV Bu spoke coldly and interrupted Immortal King Xian Bei's words. Xian Bei, I've already given you face by sparing the low-grade cultivators of the Qin clan and the Lei clan. Otherwise, based on my previous temperament, if the Lei clan and the Qin clan dared to touch my sworn brother, all of them should be slaughtered. Even if this matter is reported to the two emperors, I can still justify myself. As soon as he finished speaking, LV Bu's gaze fell on the seats of the Su clan and shouted coldly. Who is Su Yuanjin? His cold shout was filled with killing intent, causing the cultivators of the Su clan to break out in cold sweat. Immediately, an old man with white hair that reached the ground stood up in a panic. He cupped his fists respectfully towards LV Bu and said. This junior is the clan leader of the Su clan, Su Yuanjin. May I know what orders King Bu has for me? This old man had a cultivation base at the mid-Shikong realm. He was the clan leader of the Su clan, Su Yuanjin. After being called out by LV Bu, Su Yuanjin did not dare to be negligent. He immediately answered. However, his heart was filled with anxiety. Su Yuanjin was the clan leader of the Su clan. He naturally knew that his clansman, Sun Yan, had died in Ning Fan's hands. He knew that the reason why LV Bu called out his name was probably because of Sun Yan, Su Yuanjin. I heard that Sun Yan, a member of your clan, had a fair fight with my sworn brother. However, he died because he was not as skilled as the other party. Is this true? I even heard that your clansman, Su Dao, intended to stand up for Sun Yan and cause trouble for my sworn brother. Is there such a thing? Lu Feng's eyes narrowed and were piercingly cold. When Su Yuanjin met Lu Feng's cold gaze, he was immediately frightened, and his body was covered in cold sweat. He fiercely glared at Su Dao, cupped his fists, and apologized. Sun Yan died in a fair duel. No one can be blamed for his death. Perhaps his cousin, Su Dao, was indignant and spoke rudely to the Plague King's sworn brother. This old man was indeed unaware of this, and it was definitely not my Su family's intention. You don't know. He. Lu Fan narrowed his eyes and looked at Su Dao. Being swept by LV Feng's gaze, Su Dao, who was at the intermediate stage of the true crossing realm, immediately felt as if his life or death was not under his control. Almost without any hesitation, Su Dao immediately cupped his fists towards LV Wen and said, this junior has already dispelled any enmity towards Brother Ning. I'm willing to make a great heart demon oath that I will never cause any trouble for Brother Ning in this life because of Sun Yan's matter. Remember your vow. If you violate this vow, I will naturally make you pay the price. The Su family behind you will certainly be annihilated because of you. LV Wen grinned, revealing his white teeth. When Su Dao and the cultivators of the Su family saw LV Wen's expression, all of them shuddered. LV Wen sneered. His eyes swept across the entire venue without any scruples. Since he had already decided to help Ning Fan, he might as well help Ning Fan once more. With his ferocious reputation, he could help Ning Fan frighten the rascals and avoid endless troubles in the future. After making sure that there were no more enemies of Ning Fan in the venue, LV Wen nodded his head in satisfaction. He sent a few words to Ning Fan through telepathy and returned to his seat on the high platform with a flash. Ning Fan looked at LV Wen with a complicated expression. The few words that LV Wen said to him were still echoing in his mind. Don't worry, fellow Taoist Ning. Currently, you have no choice but to conceal your cultivation base and can't display your immortal king realm strength. It will be very inconvenient for you to act. If you are in danger, I will naturally lend you a helping hand. Today, I made the decision to call you my sworn brother without your permission. This is just an expedient measure. I hope fellow Taoist Ning won't mind. Ning Fan sighed softly. Since LV1 had helped him, why would he be calculative with him? Killing Lei Jinshi, killing all the experts above the profound ghost realm of the Lei family and the Qin family, frightening the Su family and giving him the identity of the Plague King's sworn brother, everything that LV1 did was for his sake. How could he not appreciate it? Even if everything that LV1 did was just because of a misunderstanding and Ning Fan's non-existent identity as a cultivator of the South family, he would still secretly remember today's kindness. Xianbei Immortal King glanced at LV1's direction and sighed helplessly. He ordered a few Divine Void Realm cultivators to go to the seats of the Qin family and help them clean up the corpses. After that, he waved his hand and took out a name list. Let's put the matter of Lei Jinshi's death aside for now. Now, I will personally award the rewards to the tomb keepers of this competition. The name list originally had 4,175 names of the tomb keepers. As Immortal King Xianbei took out another jade slip, it recorded the results of all the tomb keepers in the first 2 rounds and converted them into points. Xianbei Immortal King cast a hand seal on the jade slip. Immediately, rays of light flew into the name list. After a few breaths, there were only 100 names left in the name list. They were arranged according to their ranking. Among the 100 people, Ning Fan was ranked first. The rest of the people were the top 100 cultivators in this competition. After the name list was settled, Immortal King Xianbei glanced at it and cast a hand seal on it. Immediately, the name list turned into a golden rainbow and soared into the sky. It grew longer in the sky and turned into a huge scroll, unfolding bit by bit. The 100 names on the scroll were glittering with golden light. With the spirit sense of the old monsters here, they could naturally see all of them clearly. Ranked 19th. If I knew that Brother Ning would pass through the 24th tomb, I would have cancelled the 3rd round. I would have gone through a few more tombs to get a better result. Jun Zhangdong smiled faintly, not minding that he couldn't get into the top 10. Ranked 3rd. Yu Han bit her lips and glanced at Ning Fan. She sighed and retracted her gaze reluctantly. Ning Fan's strength was far beyond her imagination. He had gone through 24 tombs in a row. She couldn't be compared with him. Moreover, Ning Fan was the sworn brother of the Plague King. This identity was too frightening. Even she didn't dare to provoke Ning Fan anymore. Ranked 2nd. Su Dao smiled bitterly and closed his eyes. After witnessing Ning Fan's strength, he had already dispelled all kinds of hostility towards Ning Fan. Now that the Plague King had appeared, he naturally wouldn't dare to act against Ning Fan recklessly. The top 100 of the tomb competition would be rewarded handsomely. The top 50 of the tomb competition would be rewarded with an emptiness token. The top 50 tomb watchers would be rewarded with an emptiness token after the competition. The top 20 tomb watchers would be rewarded with 2 emptiness tokens. The top 10 tomb watchers would be rewarded with 4 emptiness tokens and the title of Immortal Monarch given by the Godly Void Pavilion. The first tomb watcher could make a request to the Godly Void Pavilion. As long as it was within the ability of the Godly Void Pavilion, it would be granted. Immortal King Xianbei didn't immediately give the reward to Ning Fan who was ranked first. Instead, he started to give the rewards to the cultivators who were ranked lower. Most of the cultivators who were ranked below the top 10 would be rewarded with pills, magical treasures, cultivation methods, emptiness tokens and other kinds of rewards. Usually, these cultivators only needed to go forward, bow to Immortal King Xianbei, show their faces and get their rewards. Then, they could leave the stage. When it came to the cultivators who were ranked 10th, the rewards began to be given out in a solemn manner. Immortal King Xianbei walked to the front of the high platform and looked at the remaining 10 tomb watchers. His eyes turned serious and he pointed his finger. Immediately, a giant monument fell from the sky in front of Ning Fan and the other 10 tomb watchers. Immortal Bestowal Monument. One of the secret treasures of the Godly Void Pavilion. Most of the monument was blank. Only 149 words were engraved on the upper left corner. Each of the words represented the title of an immortal monarch. The words were engraved with different depths. The deeper the words were engraved, the more astonishing the immortal might it contained. The 148th word was shadow. It was engraved by Qin Lian. After engraving this word, he became the immortal monarch of shadow and obtained a secret technique from the immortal bestowal monument. The 149th word was bone. It was engraved by Jun Changdong. After engraving this word, Jun Changdong obtained a secret technique. Since the first tomb competition, a total of 149 immortal monarchs have been born in the Godly Void Pavilion. The top 10 of each tomb competition will have the chance to leave their title in front of the immortal bestowal monument. Unfortunately, not everyone has the ability to leave a word on the monument. Xian Bei's eyes fell on the 10th tomb watcher halfway through his words. Divine Tao Sect, Lu Shi. You have the time it takes for an incense stick to burn. You can use all your strength to leave a word on the immortal bestowal monument. If you can do it, that word will be your immortal monarch title. Once you get this title, you will get the corresponding reward from the immortal bestowal monument. As soon as immortal King Xianbei's voice faded, the tomb watcher who was ranked 10th immediately took a step forward and walked to the immortal bestowal monument. His eyes were filled with excitement. His name was Lu Shi, an early crossing truth cultivator. What he wanted to engrave on the immortal bestowal monument was fire. Lu Shi flicked his finger and a fiery light immediately flew out from his finger. It turned into rays of divine light and fiercely slashed at the immortal bestowal monument. He tried to engrave the word, fire, on the immortal bestowal monument to obtain the title of Fire Immortal Monarch. Unfortunately, when his attack landed on the immortal bestowal monument, it only triggered 7 rays of divine light. It did not leave a single scratch on the monument. Under the immortal bestowal monument, he used all kinds of divine powers but still failed to engrave a word. After the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, Lu Shi let out a long sigh. He had lost the right to engrave a word on the immortal bestowal monument. After accepting the other rewards, he left the venue dejectedly. After this person, the 9th, 8th and 7th ranked cultivators also failed. They failed to engrave a single word on the monument. When these people's attacks landed on the immortal bestowal monument, it triggered more than 10 rays of divine light. The more divine light it triggered, the more powerful the divine power of engraving was. Unfortunately, they still could not engrave a word. The tomb watcher who ranked 6th was a sword cultivator. When his sharp sword light landed on the immortal bestowal monument, it triggered a total of 21 rays of divine light. Even so, his sword strike was only enough to leave a barely noticeable mark on the immortal bestowal monument. After the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, this person still could not engrave a word and failed to obtain the title of immortal monarch. The 5th and 4th ranked tomb watchers also failed to obtain the title of immortal monarch. The strength of their divine powers was only around 26 or 27 rays of divine light. The Void Gate's disciple, Yu Han, was ranked 3rd. When it was her turn, she finally engraved the word, moon, on the immortal bestowal monument and obtained the title of Moon Immortal Monarch. Yu Han's strongest divine power landed on the immortal bestowal monument and triggered a total of 56 rays of divine light. The moment she carved the word, moon, a ray of moonlight immediately flew out of the immortal bestowal monument and entered between her brows. No one knew what the moonlight contained. The only thing they knew was Yu Han's joyful expression. Su Dao, ranked 2nd, carved the word, sever, on the immortal bestowal monument. His divine power triggered a total of 75 rays of divine light on the immortal bestowal monument. His Dao was to sever all grudges. That was the reason why he wanted to avenge Sun Yan. He wanted to improve his Dao heart by severing the grudge between him and Sun Yan. Unfortunately, Ning Fan wasn't someone he could sever. He could only choose to forget and sever the grudge between him and Ning Fan. After that, he would look for other things that he could sever for his cultivation. Sever immortal monarch, huh? Ning Fan's eyes narrowed slightly. He looked at Su Dao and saw his kind smile. The kindness in that smile wasn't fake. Since Su Dao couldn't sever the grudge between him and Ning Fan, he decided to sever his enmity towards Ning Fan. He can even sever my enmity. Ning Fan withdrew his gaze and looked at the immortal bestowal monument. The rest of the tomb watchers had already left the place. He was the only one who stayed. He was the champion of this tomb competition. He could obtain all kinds of rewards, including the title of immortal monarch and also a chance to make a request. He had already thought of the content of his request. As for the title of immortal monarch, he had yet to decide. According to his estimation, the power of his divine power needed to reach at least 35 rays of divine light to be able to carve clear words on the immortal bestowal monument. Currently, his blood essence was severely depleted and his injuries weren't light. The strength that he could exert was limited, but carving words on the immortal bestowal monument wasn't a problem for him. The tomb watcher of Luo clan, Ning Fan. Have you thought about what you want to carve on the immortal bestowal monument? Immortal King Xian Bei's voice suddenly came from the northern high platform. I have. Ning Fan walked towards the immortal bestowal monument step by step, his eyes were filled with reminiscence. If he had to choose an immortal monarch title, there was only one that he wanted, there was only one word that he wanted to carve, and that word was rain. He came from the rain world. He was a cultivator of the rain world. If he had to choose an immortal monarch title, he hoped that it would be Rain Immortal Monarch. He raised his hand and summoned the memory-severing Dao sword. He activated 4 rays of purple chi sword light and slashed at the immortal bestowal monument. Immediately, the immortal bestowal monument trembled slightly and emitted 40 rays of divine light. 40 rays of divine light. Little Fanfan's injury seemed to be very serious. He can't exert his full strength, will he be alright? Little Demoness knitted her brows. Many of the old monsters on the 4 high platforms felt slightly regretful. They could see that Ning Fan was injured. If it wasn't for that, no one knew how many rays of divine light Ning Fan could produce if he exerted his full strength. No one doubted that Ning Fan could produce more divine light than Su Dao and the others if he exerted his full strength. At this moment, Ning Fan's face was pale and bloodless. His chi was weak. It was already very rare for him to be able to produce 40 rays of divine light. A word, rain, gradually formed on the immortal bestowal monument. The moment this word was carved, it meant that Ning Fan had officially obtained the title of Rain Immortal Monarch from the Godly Void Pavilion. 40 rays of divine light, even if this kid isn't injured, I'm afraid it'll be hard for him to produce more than 100 rays of divine light. Immortal King Xian Bei shook his head expressionlessly. Even though Ning Fan was the sworn brother of the Plague King, he still wouldn't pay too much attention to him. Now, you can use your identity as the champion of the tomb competition to make a request to me. Tell me your request through telepathy. Ning Fan's eyes inadvertently swept across the seat of Little Demoness. The corner of his mouth curved into a smile. He raised his head and looked towards the north. Then, he cupped his fists towards the direction of Immortal King Xian Bei. His lips moved but no sound came out. Immortal King Xian Bei's expression was as calm as an ancient well at first. However, after hearing Ning Fan's request, he was first startled. Then, he stared at Ning Fan with a solemn expression. After remaining silent for a long time, he said in a stern voice. Your request has been accepted. The Godly Void Pavilion will never agree to it. Take your reward and leave. As soon as he finished speaking, Immortal King Xian Bei flicked his finger. The storage pouch that contained the reward immediately turned into a ray of light and flew towards Ning Fan. Ning Fan did not take the storage pouch. He let it fall on the ground without looking at it. He stared at Immortal King Xian Bei in disbelief. He had never thought that the Godly Void Pavilion would reject his request so straightforwardly. Luo Shi frowned. He stood up and bowed respectfully to Immortal King Xian Bei. Then, he asked. May I ask Immortal King, what request did Ning Fan make? Why did Immortal King reject it so straightforwardly? According to the rules of the tomb competition, the champion of this year's tomb competition has the right to make any request to the Godly Void Pavilion. As long as the Godly Void Pavilion can do it, they must agree to it. The problem is that my Godly Void Pavilion can't do it. Immortal King Xian Bei sighed softly and transmitted his voice to Luo Shi and the other elders. He even transmitted his voice to Lu Feng and the other immortal kings. All of a sudden, all the elders including Luo Shi showed a troubled expression. Ning Fan's request was very simple. There was only one sentence. The name of the divine void young Lord Shao Qianxi must be removed from the list of sacrificial offerings. If Ning Fan made this request a few years ago, perhaps the Godly Void Pavilion wouldn't have such a hard time. Even if Little Demoness was on the list of sacrificial offerings, they would most likely agree to his request. Unfortunately, the current Little Demoness had already been personally named by the Dark Race a few years ago. The sacrificial offerings that the Dark Race wants have always been determined to get. Since this girl has already been named by the Dark Race, even I wouldn't dare to act recklessly against her. Little friend Ning's request is somewhat unwise. Could this request be the intention of the old ancestor of our clan? My southern clan wants to start a war with the Dark Race. Lu Feng's eyes showed a thoughtful expression and sighed after a while. He was afraid that the Godly Void Pavilion wouldn't agree to this request. Even if he had the intention to help Ning Fan, it would be futile. I don't know how my request is too much. Immortal King, please enlighten me. Ning Fan looked at Immortal King Xian Bei without any hesitation. There was no fear in his eyes, only determination. Immortal King Xian Bei frowned. When he was about to explain, two seven-colored figures suddenly appeared between heaven and earth. They were the two divine void emperors. Xian Bei, what is his request? Void Sovereign asked Immortal King Xian Bei with a solemn expression. Immortal King Xian Bei did not dare to be negligent. He immediately transmitted his voice to the two great sovereigns who had just arrived. As soon as he heard Immortal King Xian Bei's voice, Void Sovereign's eyes turned cold. Then, he let out a sigh. He sighed because Ning Fan's request was actually related to the sacrificial offerings. As for Divine Void Sovereign, he let out a cold harumph. Without saying a word, he directly spread out his vast sovereign sense and pressed it towards Ning Fan's direction. Junior, back off. This emperor will not agree to your request. Chapter 846. Divine Space Emperor did not give any explanation. He felt that it was beneath him to give Ning Fan any explanation at all. He directly spread out his emperor sense and pressed it down on Ning Fan. All the sounds between heaven and earth disappeared at this moment. An invisible pressure suddenly fell on Ning Fan's body. Ning Fan's expression changed. At this moment, he sensed a will from the starry sky. It was as if the entire starry sky of the East Sea domain was crushing down on him. The millions of cultivators held their breaths and wore shocked expressions after being affected by the monarch will. Even a celestial king like LV Feng looked in the direction of the Divine Space Emperor in shock. This pressure was too strong. How could an ordinary cultivator resist the pressure of an eternal Eighth Tribulation Immortal Emperor? Ning Fan, who was in the center of the pressure, immediately suffered a heavy blow. He coughed out blood and retreated. Even when he was at his peak, he would not have been able to face the Eighth Eternal Tribulation head-on. At this moment, his injuries were extremely severe. Being intimidated by the pressure, his internal injuries immediately showed signs of worsening. The cold snort of God Emperor Shen Kong seemed to have turned into millions of lightning strikes which exploded continuously in Ning Fan's sea of consciousness. His voice echoed in Ning Fan's ears for a long time. Every time it echoed, Ning Fan's injuries would worsen. This emperor will not accept your request. I forbid it. No. Puff, Ning Fan spurted out another mouthful of blood. His consciousness became blurry as if he was going to faint under the pressure. Luo Shi, LV Feng, Little Demoness, Li Xiaoxiao. All the cultivators who had some friendship with Ning Fan stood up and pleaded in the direction of Emperor Shin Space. Sovereign Emperor, please show mercy. Humph. This emperor has already shown mercy. Otherwise, this boy would already be dead. Amidst the seven-colored light, the Shin Space Emperor let out a cold snort. He did not remove the pressure, but instead increased it once again, causing the formless pressure to turn into a real seven-colored light. This was a punishment for Ning Fan for coveting the sacrificial offering. As the pressure grew stronger, the center of the venue was immediately enveloped by the multicolored Emperor's might, making it impossible for outsiders to see what was happening. As the seven-colored Emperor's might descended upon him, Ning Fan felt like he had turned into a withered leaf in the wind. He was in danger of falling at any time. His face was completely devoid of any color, but his gaze grew colder and colder without any fear. He gritted his teeth and remained stubborn. Under the seven-colored Emperor's might, he raised his head. The boundless seven-colored Emperor's might blocked his vision, preventing him from seeing what was happening in front of him. He was like a piece of lowly soil while the Shin Space Emperor was like a high and mighty star. There was a huge disparity between their statuses, but there was no fear in Ning Fan's eyes, only anger. At this moment, he gritted his teeth and stabilized his body, which had been retreating. His white robe was stained with blood and his ink-black hair danced wildly in the wind. He lifted his hand and swiped it across his face. Immediately, a ferocious and terrifying silver ghost mask appeared. His ink-black hair turned silver at this moment, and a murderous aura gathered in his eyes, turning them into the color of blood. The moment he summoned the ghost face, the mountain-like pressure that was suppressing his body immediately weakened by more than 50%. Ning Fan took a step forward and glared at the galaxy. His eyes flashed with green light as if he had become one with heaven and earth. The great Tao of the world seemed to resonate with him. The killing intent in his eyes seemed to be able to overturn the heavens. By borrowing the power of the ghost face and merging with the great Tao of heaven and earth, Ning Fan actually resisted the aura force of the Shin Space Emperor. His gaze penetrated through the seven-colored Emperor's might and saw the shocked expression of the Shin Space Emperor under the seven-colored divine light. It was Ning Fan's first time forcefully seeing through the appearance of an immortal emperor. Is this the style of the godly void pavilion? You rejected my request and broke your promise first. Then, you bullied a junior as a dignified immortal emperor. What a godly void pavilion. What a Shin Space Emperor. Unfortunately, even if you are an immortal emperor, you can forget about subduing me with just your aura force. The reign of heaven and earth, listen to my command. Rebel for me. As soon as the word, rebel, was uttered, the rain star on Ning Fan's glabella flashed. At this moment, his voice also contained a trace of will which was added to the rain and mist of heaven and earth. The rain and mist of heaven and earth all fused with his voice. It moved against the heavens and soared into the sky. His voice blended with the sky and did not disperse for a long time. Within the starry sky, Ning Fan's voice reverberated. The Tao heart of every cultivator who heard this voice trembled. The seven-colored aura force which was suppressing Ning Fan's body was swept away by the rain intent. With a loud bang, it completely collapsed. The Emperor's aura force was broken. Within the seven-colored divine light that scattered in all directions, Ning Fan kept his ghost face. He raised his head angrily and stared coldly at Shin Space Emperor who was high up in the sky. Silence. The four tall platforms were filled with dead silence. There was only the sound of people inhaling cold breaths. Other than the Shin Void Emperor and Shin Space Emperor, there was no one else who could see through the seven-colored Emperor's aura force and see what happened just now. Outsiders did not know how Ning Fan broke the Emperor's aura force of an 8 immortal emperor with his ghost profound body. However, they saw the scene of the seven-colored Emperor's aura force collapsing with their own eyes. How could they not be shocked? Even LV Feng's face was filled with astonishment. His mouth was wide open and his jaw almost dropped to the ground. He, LV Feng, was definitely the person who had the highest estimation of Ning Fan's strength in this place. In his eyes, Ning Fan was just an immortal king who concealed his cultivation base. However, from LV Feng's point of view, even if Ning Fan was an immortal king, it was impossible for him to break the emperor's aura force of an 8 tribulation immortal emperor. Could it be that I have underestimated fellow Daoist Ning's true strength? He's not an immortal king but an immortal emperor. That's right. Only in this way could he possibly break the emperor's aura force of an 8 tribulation great emperor. The more LV Feng thought about it, the more he overestimated Ning Fan's strength. Only Ning Fan himself knew that the reason why he could break Shin Space Emperor's aura force head-on was because he used a trick. The innate ghost face helped him block 50% of Shin Space Emperor's aura force, while the one with the heavens helped him block the remaining Emperor's aura force. The innate ghost face was a supreme treasure that immortal emperors could only dream of, while the one with the heavens was a great ability that even Shin Space Emperor could not comprehend. Without these two trump cards, Ning Fan would not be able to withstand Shin Space Emperor's aura force. After comprehending the yin-yang of rain, Ning Fan borrowed a trace of the power of the Tao of rain and crushed Shin Space Emperor's aura force along its meridian. The yin-yang of rain contained a trace of the power of the sovereign realm. It was a kind of power that only sovereign immortal emperors could control. Even Shin Space Emperor could not cultivate the power of the sovereign realm. Without the yin-yang of rain, even if Ning Fan could withstand the seven-colored emperor's aura force, he would not be able to control the rain of heaven and earth to counterattack and destroy the seven-colored emperor's aura force. In order to destroy the seven-colored emperor's aura force, Ning Fan must have 3 trump cards. Of course, there was another important reason why Ning Fan was able to destroy Shin Space Emperor's seven-colored emperor's aura force. The current Shin Space Emperor was not in his peak state. His physical body had already been destroyed and only his primordial spirit had taken the form of a human and arrived at this place. This severe injury had greatly reduced Shin Space Emperor's aura force. His aura force was less than 30% of his peak state, giving Ning Fan a chance to destroy the Emperor's aura force. No matter what, Ning Fan had still destroyed Shin Space Emperor's aura force. This was a fact that Shin Space Emperor was unwilling to accept, but he could not deny it. Both Shin Space Emperor and Void Emperor were immortal emperors. Their eyes could see through the seven-colored Emperor's aura force and see everything that Ning Fan had done. At this moment, the Void Emperor's expression changed. Inwardly, he was astonished. Every single one of the 3 trump cards that Ning Fan had displayed astonished him. The innate ghost face. The one with the heavens. It even has a trace of the power of the sovereign realm. This young man is just a ghost profound realm cultivator, but he actually has 3 terrifying trump cards. It's definitely not a coincidence for him to be able to destroy the seven-colored Emperor's aura force with his ghost profound realm cultivation base. The Void Emperor thought to himself. At this moment, Shin Space Emperor did not say a word. He was just as shocked as Ning Fan. However, what he felt more was jealousy and anger. He was angry because Ning Fan, a mere Ghost Profound Realm Jr., actually dared to retaliate against him and destroy his seven-colored Emperor's aura force. He was jealous because all of Ning Fan's 3 trump cards were things that he longed for and none of them were things that he did not have. Even if he tries to snatch them from others, he would not be able to do so. Once the second step spiritual equipment recognizes its master, it could not be snatched away. The one with the heavens depended on one's own comprehension and it could not be snatched away. The power of the sovereign realm, on the other hand, depended on one's own cultivation and it could not be snatched from the outside world. The only shortcut to cultivating the power of the sovereign realm was to absorb the sovereign Tao fruit of a fallen sovereign emperor. Unfortunately, the probability of the sovereign Tao fruit taking form was too low. Moreover, Ning Fan was not a sovereign immortal emperor at all. Even if I kill him, it would not be possible for any sovereign Tao fruit to appear. This brat actually possesses all of the things that I could not even dream of. In his entire life, Shen Kong, a dignified 8th tribulation great sovereign, was jealous of a Ghost Profound Realm Jr. for the first time. After destroying Shen Kong's seven-colored Emperor's aura force, Ning Fan's anger subsided slightly. His eyes regained a trace of calmness. His gaze moved away from Shen Kong and landed on the Void Emperor. He cupped his fists slightly and bowed to him. Then, He asked in a neither servile nor overbearing manner. May I ask the Emperor if this junior has obtained the first place in the tomb competition? According to the rules of the tomb competition, should the Godly Void Pavilion agree to a junior's request? Yes. As long as your request is not too excessive, my Godly Void Pavilion will agree to it. However, the problem is that your request is indeed a little excessive. The Void Emperor sighed softly. His tone actually carried a hint of politeness. With his identity, it was impossible for him to be polite to a junior in the Ghost Profound realm. However, Ning Fan was different. He had displayed many trump cards and great potential. Hence, he could not afford to underestimate him. This junior doesn't know how my request is excessive. Emperor, please speak clearly. After hearing what was said, the Void Emperor sighed softly. He did not answer directly. Instead, he pointed his finger at Ning Fan. Immediately, a jade slip turned into a ray of light and flew towards Ning Fan. Ning Fan received the jade slip and scanned it with his spirit sense. Immediately, his face turned ashen. The jade slip recorded a major event that happened a few years ago. A few years ago, the emissary of the Dark Race suddenly came to the Godly Void Pavilion. He requested the Godly Void Pavilion to repair the Eastern Ocean Bell within 1,000 years before opening the bell sacrifice. At the same time, he named the little demoness as the sacrificial offering for the next bell sacrifice. They must use her primordial spirit to refine wine, and no other sacrificial offering was allowed to replace it. The jade slip even mentioned the reason why the Dark Race wanted the primordial spirit wine from the little demoness. There was only one reason. It was because she was a member of the Shao family. She was the female cultivator with the best bloodline in the Shao family. Bang! Ning Fan's eyes were burning with anger. He crushed the jade slip. He did not know the reason why the Dark Race repeatedly attacked the female cultivators of the Shao family. The only thing he knew was that the moment he learned of this matter, his heart actually had a trace of killing intent towards the Dark Race that he had never met before. He already knew the reason why the Godly Void Pavilion was not willing to agree to his request. However, all of this could not change his determination to save the little demoness. He did not intend to ask the Godly Void Pavilion to remove the name of the little demoness as a sacrificial offering. This request was not thorough enough. With the Godly Void Pavilion's fearful attitude towards the Dark Race, even if he removed the name of the sacrificial offering today, the Dark Race would most likely make the little demoness sacrifice herself in the future. He absolutely would not allow such a thing to happen. Little friend, you should change your request. This request, my Godly Void Pavilion cannot agree to it. The Void Emperor sighed and persuaded. All right. I also want to change my request. Ning Fan took a deep breath. His eyes suddenly looked towards the little demoness seat and said in a clear voice. My original request was to remove her name from the Godly Void offering list. But now, I have changed my mind. I want to take her away. From today onwards, she is only my woman. She is no longer the young lord of the Godly Void Pavilion, nor is she a Godly Void offering. No one can touch her. This is my request. I hope the two emperors will agree to it. Hissed out on the 4 high platforms, the sound of people sucking in a cold breath could be heard. There were only a few old monsters who knew the identity of the young lord of the Godly Void Pavilion. Most of the old monsters were shocked when they heard Ning Fan's words. They were shocked that the dignified young lord of the Godly Void Pavilion was actually a sacrificial offering. Many of the old monsters who knew about it were shocked by Ning Fan's boldness. He actually dared to ask for a sacrificial offering from the Godly Void Pavilion. Moreover, the sacrificial offering that he was asking for was the one that had just been named by the Dark Race. His request is actually for me. The little demoness' heart trembled. Countless ripples reverberated in her heart. She could not calm down at all. She had already vaguely noticed that Ning Fan would rather break the Emperor's prestige and offend the Shin Void Emperor to insist on her request. There must be a reason that he could not back down. However, she had never thought that the reason that Ning Fan could not back down was actually herself. At this moment, the little demoness could no longer fake her smile. Her crystal-clear eyes gradually became blurry. 2 streams of tears flowed down. It was as if all the grievances and unfairness that she had suffered in this life had flowed away along with her tears. So, not everyone was indifferent to her life and death. There was still one person who cared about her, impudent. Who do you think you are? How dare you compete with us, the dark race, for the sacrificial offering? Ning Fan's new request made the faces of the godly Void Emperor and the godly Void Emperor turn gloomy. However, before the 2 emperors could say anything, a furious voice descended from the sky. The one who spoke was an elderly man clad in black armor. His entire body was enveloped in 7-colored light. His eyes were shining with a strange black light, and he was standing on 9 layers of dark clouds. The moment this person appeared, the expressions of the godly Void Emperor and the godly Void Emperor changed drastically. Many of the old monsters present recognized this person and were shocked. 9 layers of dark clouds. He is the great emperor of the dark race. Dark race. The dark race of the 10 great secret races? Why is the great emperor of the dark race here? Ning Fan's eyes suddenly turned cold. The person who came was actually the great emperor of the dark race. He was an immortal emperor who had passed the 6th tribulation since the ancient times. The great emperor of the dark race sneered. He lifted his finger and pointed it at Ning Fan's head. His finger was like a black sun. When his finger fell, the shadow of a black sun immediately appeared between heaven and earth. It had a strange black light that could devour all cultivation bases and abilities. This finger was obviously one of the secret techniques of the dark race, Dark Radiance Finger. This finger was filled with killing intent. This great sovereign of the dark race swore to kill Ning Fan right here and now. It was all because Ning Fan was audacious enough to covet the sacrificial offering of the dark race. The Shinkong Emperor's face darkened. Although he did not like the sudden arrival of the dark race, he had no intention of stopping them. The Void Space Emperor's expression changed. He immediately raised his hand, wanting to save Ning Fan. However, after a moment of hesitation, he put down his hand as he did not dare to offend the dark race. Li Xiaoxiao was startled. She immediately jumped onto the chair and took out a life-saving jade pendant. She wanted to break it and save Ning Fan. It was a life-saving treasure given to her by the calamity-wielding Great Emperor. At this moment, she didn't hesitate to use it. The little demoness' face turned pale. At the moment when the great sovereign of the dark race tried to kill Ning Fan, she felt an indescribable pain in her heart. LV Feng and Luoshi suddenly rose to their feet. They wanted to help Ning Fan, but under the pressure of the Emperor's aura force, both of them retreated. On the divine space star, Xiang Bozi, who was sweeping the fallen leaves, suddenly raised his head. His usually solemn face was now filled with anger. The Dark Ones again. Do you think I'm weak and easy to bully? He took a step forward, wanting to save Ning Fan. However, he did not take that step in the end. Instead, he stood on the same spot. It was not because he was afraid of the dark race. Instead, it was because Ning Fan's body had changed again. Ning Fan stared at the great sovereign of the dark race. His eyes were filled with unwillingness and anger. He was angry because the dark race's overbearing way of doing things. He was unwilling because he was too weak. In front of this great sovereign of the dark race, he actually had no power to resist at all. Junior, remember this. The sacrificial offering of our dark race is not something that just anyone can touch. Sun Luo couldn't do it. You also don't have the right to do so. This finger is this old man's lesson for you. The great sovereign of the dark race smiled disdainfully. His black finger descended and his killing intent arrived. At the moment when the killing intent was about to reach him, Ning Fan took out a jade pendant and broke it. He did not take out the jade slip of the Slaughter Emperor. He did not want to involve the Slaughter Palace in the dispute with the dark race and implicate them. The jade pendant that Ning Fan took out was something that he had requested from the ancient Chaos Great Emperor. The reason why he asked for it was to use the prestige of the ancient Chaos Great Emperor to intimidate the Divine Void Great Emperors when necessary. Today, it happened to be used on the Dark Race. The moment the jade pendant was broken, an aura force that was strong enough to destroy the starry sky suddenly appeared on Ning Fan's body. All of a sudden, the illusory figure of an elderly man appeared beside Ning Fan. Even though this elderly man's body was illusory, he carried an aura force that could shake heaven and earth. It was enough to look down on all living beings in the 4 heavens and 9 worlds. As soon as the elderly man appeared, he immediately showed an enraged expression. He clawed with his hand and the starry sky suddenly collapsed. The destructive force swept across the entire Eastern Ocean star region. The 10,000 zhang long finger light of the dark glory finger trembled violently when it was hit by the destructive force. Then, it shattered into countless black suns and suns. The destructive force continued to sweep across the area and swept towards the great sovereign of the dark race. The great sovereign of the dark race was greatly shocked. Before he could react, his physical body directly collapsed and his blood splattered across the sky. Only his celestial emperor essence soul escaped with his storage bag. He didn't die, but he was seriously injured and on the verge of death. He looked at the illusory old man with fear in his eyes. With his eyesight, he could naturally tell that the illusory old man was only a wisp of emperor will, and not his actual body. The power of the emperor's will was less than 1/10 of the original, but it was still more powerful than any sage to be of the dark race. Who was this person? When did such an expert appear in the Divine Void Pavilion? Wasn't Xiang Bozi the only quasi-saint in the Godly Void Pavilion? Who are you? How dare you destroy my body? Aren't you afraid of the dark race? The Dark Monarch suppressed the shock in his heart and wanted to say something vicious to intimidate the illusory old man before him. However, before he could finish his words, the illusory old man immediately let out a cold snort of laughter from his extreme anger. Who do you think you are? How dare you touch this old man's disciple? This cold snort stirred up a formless sound wave that violently shook Dark Thearka's primordial spirit, causing him to vomit blood and fly backward again. He had no strength to resist at all. Dark race? Ants. You're just the last remnant of an Yuanshen. Do you know that even if your ancestor in Yuanshen was still alive, he might have retreated in fear when he saw me? He wouldn't even dare to harm a single hair of my disciple, or what awaits him is death. The illusory old man raised his hand and pointed, and the shadows of 4 black suns appeared in the sky at the same time. The 4 black suns shattered at the same time, turning into 4 rays of light that shot towards Dark Thearka's primordial spirit. At that moment, Dark Thearka's primordial spirit was shocked. 4 extremities obsidian. The strongest finger technique of the dark race that has been lost for many years. Who are you, and why do you know this technique? There was no need to answer. The illusory old man's eyes flashed coldly, and all his murderous intent was fused into this finger. He wouldn't allow anyone to harm his disciple. The 10 great secret races were nothing to him. Ancient Chaos Grand Emperor, have mercy. An 8-colored ray of light instantly appeared in front of Dark Thearka's primordial spirit, protecting it and trying to block the 4 rays of light. He was a quasi-sage of the dark race. He recognized who the illusory old man was, and his gloomy expression was now filled with fear. Ancient Chaos Grand Emperor. He was someone that the dark race couldn't afford to offend even if they used all their power. Even if the ancient Chaos Grand Emperor was just an illusion. The dark race couldn't afford to offend him at all. Chapter 847. The demi-saint of the dark race who had rushed over to save him was filled with fear. He had seen the portrait of ancient chaos hanging in the primordial pavilion of his clan. With his eyesight, he could naturally tell that the illusory old man standing beside Ning Fan was ancient chaos. Although it wasn't the main body, it was still an emperor's will avatar. Only a handful of ancient great emperors could condense emperor will doppelgangers. The ancient chaos illusion couldn't leave the god's tomb, but he could still condense an emperor will doppelganger and send it out of the god's tomb. Although the monarch will doppelganger had great drawbacks, if ancient chaos were to go crazy, this monarch will doppelganger would be enough to destroy the dark tribe with a snap of his fingers. The demi-saint of the dark tribe recalled the patriarch's repeated warnings before he left the tribe. Entiendo, you are one of my race's 3 great quasi-sages. Today, I will send you to the godly void pavilion with a newly ascended immortal emperor. You will announce my orders to the godly void emperor duo. The bell's sacrifice must be reopened within 1,000 years. The offering must be a female cultivator of the Shao clan who possesses the dark blood. The godly void pavilion is not worth mentioning, but the one in the divine tomb is someone that you must never offend. Remember this. If things change, even if we give up in Shui, we can't become enemies with this person. The demi-saint of the dark race, Entiendo, was terrified. If he knew that Ning Fan had the support of ancient chaos, he certainly would not have allowed that immortal emperor of the dark race to attack Ning Fan. However, it was too late to say anything now. Entiendo stood in front of the dark immortal emperor's nascent soul and drew a strange black circle with his hands. Millions of black crows flew out of the black circle to protect him. Although he was the weakest of the 3 sage-to-be of the dark tribe, his defensive technique was extraordinary. Few sage-to-be could break through it head-on. However, when the 4 rays of dark luminous finger radiance suddenly neared them, the millions of black crows actually let out miserable cries one after another and instantly collapsed. Entiendo's breathing became sluggish and his expression changed. He didn't hesitate to grab the Dark Emperor's origin soul, turn around, and retreat. Although he retreated quickly, the fingertip descended even faster. Before he could retreat too far, the finger radiance landed directly on his chest, causing a series of explosions. At this critical moment, Entiendo summoned millions of strange runes to protect his chest. However, these runes were all destroyed by the finger radiance. Devour! Ancient Chaos shouted, and 4 finger lights immediately rushed into Entiendo's body. Entiendo was shaken by the finger radiance and almost fell from the sky as if he had suffered a heavy blow. His cultivation was being devoured by the 4 finger radiances that had entered his body. In a single breath, 100,000 years of cultivation was lost. In 10 breaths, he had lost 1,000,000 years of cultivation. In just 10 breaths, Entiendo's cultivation of 1,000,000 years had been erased by ancient chaos. 1,000,000 years of cultivation had been destroyed in a single day. Entiendo coughed out a mouthful of blood after stabilizing himself with great difficulty. His blood was filled with black light. Bang! Ancient Chaos suddenly shouted coldly. In an instant, the eyes of the immortal Emperor Yuan's spirit in Entiendo's hand immediately lost all their luster. Thousands of black lights shot out and cracks covered the Yuan spirit. He would not show mercy to anyone who hurt his disciple. At this moment, he dealt a fatal blow to the Yuan spirit of the dark race's immortal emperor. An immortal emperor Yuan spirit was originally protected by the emperor's qi and was extremely difficult to destroy. However, at this moment, as the black light rose, it directly exploded. The explosion of a 6th tribulation immortal emperor Yuan spirit was immeasurably powerful. It immediately caused the entire galaxy to collapse, and the broken emperor's consciousness scattered everywhere in the starry sky. In the sky above the bronze platform, an 8-colored light flashed, and Xiang Bozi's figure immediately appeared. As soon as Xiang Bozi arrived, he immediately transmitted his voice to the Divine Void Emperor and the Divine Void Emperor. The 3 of them acted at the same time and opened a barrier in the starry sky, trying to seal the explosion of the immortal Emperor Yuan spirit. Entiendo, who was holding the Yuan spirit, was the first to bear the brunt of the explosion. Even though he was a quasi-sage, he could not escape unscathed from the explosion of an immortal emperor. The arm that held the Yuan spirit was directly destroyed in the explosion, and his body was instantly engulfed by the black light. Shocking explosions rang out non-stop from within the spirit formation. Occasionally, there would be a muffled groan or two within the explosions. After an unknown period of time, the explosions finally stopped and the barrier also collapsed. The black light dispersed, revealing Entiendo's figure. At this moment, his body was covered with wounds and he looked extremely miserable. He had lost one of his arms and his expression was filled with fear. Ancient Chaos had actually killed a six-tribulation immortal emperor in front of him with a single finger and even injured a dignified quasi-sage like him. Even though the injury was not serious to him, it was not light either, especially when he had directly lost 1,000,000 years of cultivation base, condense. And Tiendo took a deep breath and uttered a word. His destructive arm immediately grew out again. He looked at the ancient Chaos Immortal Emperor. His expression was sometimes gloomy, sometimes fearful, and sometimes helpless. The four tall platforms were dead silent. No one had expected that they would witness the death of an immortal emperor in a tomb competition. Moreover, the fallen immortal emperor was from a secret race. Very few people knew that there was an illusion of ancient chaos in the divine tomb. Very few people could tell that the person standing next to Ning Fan was a clone of ancient chaos immortal emperor. However, Tiendo's voice spread across the entire place without any hesitation. Everyone already knew that the person standing next to Ning Fan was ancient chaos immortal emperor. As for Ning Fan, he was the disciple of the dignified ancient chaos immortal emperor. An ancient great emperor appeared out of nowhere and severely injured the dark race. Who wouldn't be shocked once this news spreads? Quasi-sage of the dark race. How dare you dark tribe cultivators hurt my disciple? No matter what happens today, you must give me an explanation. Otherwise, I will destroy the dark race even if I have to suffer severe injuries to my illusory body. Ancient Chaos Immortal Emperor's expression was cold and his tone was overbearing. He would kill anyone who dared to touch his disciple. Even if it was the dark race, he must give him an explanation today. And Tiendo's eyes darkened. He mustered up his courage and replied coldly. Ancient Chaos Immortal Emperor. You killed the immortal emperor of my race. The one who should give my race an explanation seems to be you. Before he could finish his words, he suddenly swallowed his words and his face was filled with fear. Ancient Chaos Immortal Emperor waved his hand and took out an ancient scroll. The surface of the scroll was flowing with golden purple light. The immortal emperor of your race injured my disciple. If you can't give me a satisfactory explanation in 3 breaths' time, I will bring this primeval pact and kill my way to the dark race. I will destroy the dark time realm and leave no one alive. What? And Tiendo broke out in cold sweat the moment he saw the purple gold scroll. Ordinary cultivators would not know what the scroll meant. Not even the divine void monarchs had the right to know. Xiang Bozi was also shocked. He did not expect that ancient Chaos Immortal Emperor would use such a terrifying scroll in his madness. Emperor, please calm down. You must not use this scroll. And Tiendo said in fear. 1 breath. My race's immortal emperor injured your disciple and you killed my race's immortal emperor. We are even now. What else do you want from me? 2 breaths. 1 dark time fruit. I am willing to offer 1 dark time fruit to you as an apology. Some old monsters who had heard of the dark time fruit before were shocked and their eyes were burning with passion. Even ancient Chaos Immortal Emperor's eyes flickered. After a moment of silence, he kept the scroll and said to Tiendo. 10. 1 less and the dark race will be annihilated. 10. My race's dark time tree can only bear 1 dark time fruit every 3,000,000 years. 10 is too many. I will not repeat myself. If the dark time fruit is not delivered in a month, I will kill my way to the dark time realm. Your race will bear the consequences. You can go back to the dark time realm and discuss with the others whether you want to give me 10 dark time fruits or not. Ancient Chaos Immortal Emperor snorted coldly. A storm of baleful chi rose to the sky and rushed towards Tiendo. Tiendo felt a chill run down his spine when he was hit by the baleful chi. His expression changed rapidly. The dark time fruit is too important. I have to return to the dark race and discuss with the other demi-saints before giving my answer to the emperor, and Tiendo clenched his teeth and cupped his fists at ancient Chaos Immortal Emperor before turning around and leaving. He had to return to the Dark Race and discuss with the other two demi-saints if they should agree to Ancient Chaos Immortal Emperor's request. They would most likely agree to it. After all, Ancient Chaos Immortal Emperor had that terrifying item. Wait. Leave your storage pouches behind. Ancient Chaos Immortal Emperor said coldly. Entiendo's expression changed when he heard Ancient Chaos Immortal Emperor's words. After thinking that there was nothing important in his storage pouch, he clenched his teeth and handed his storage pouch to Ancient Chaos Immortal Emperor. Even though he was unwilling, he did not dare to anger Ancient Chaos Immortal Emperor at this moment. After the demi-saints of the Dark Race left, the others on the scene began to feel anxious. For example, Great Emperor Shen Kong could not remain calm at this moment. Given Ancient Chaos Immortal Emperor's personality, it was impossible for him to not seek revenge from him. Ancient Chaos Immortal Emperor kept the two storage pouches and his cold eyes swept across Great Emperor Shen Kong. With just a glance, his primordial spirit became unstable. This generation's Shen Kong. You injured my disciple with your emperor might. You must give me an explanation for this. What explanation do you want? Great Emperor Shen Kong's eyes were filled with unwillingness, but he did not dare to offend Ancient Chaos Immortal Emperor. Since you are a divine void realm cultivator, I won't kill you. However, I want a third of your primordial spirit and blood essence. To punish you. Ancient Chaos Immortal Emperor said firmly. What? This is impossible. The expression of the Shin Space Emperor changed and he immediately rejected. What he got in response was a cold demonic gaze from the Ancient Chaos. I won't repeat myself. If you don't see what I want in a month, you'll have to bear the consequences. As soon as he finished speaking, he looked at Xiang Bozi and pointed at Ning Fan. Xiang Bozi, he is my disciple. You know what to do. I know. My godly void pavilion will agree to Rain Immortal Monarch's request. From this day forth, the divine void young master Shao Qianxi was no longer a sacrifice. If she leaves, my godly void pavilion will not stop her at all. If she stays in divine void pavilion, then I will guarantee that she will become a true divine void young master. Are you satisfied with this arrangement, Emperor? What else? This, from today onwards, Rain Immortal Monarch can take all the cultivation needs from the 4 divine void pavilions. Is Emperor Monarch satisfied with this arrangement? Yes, but I still want this immortal bestowal tablet. Hearing this, Xiang Bozi immediately smiled bitterly. The immortal sealing tablet was the godly void pavilion's supreme treasure, it could not be given to anyone. However, since Ancient Chaos had personally asked, how could he refuse? How could he dare to refuse? The immortal bestowal tablet can be handed over to Emperor Monarch. However, I hope that Emperor Monarch will remember the agreement with my godly void pavilion. Xiang Bozi spoke in a neither servile nor overbearing manner. Since this old man has promised, I will keep my promise. Ancient Chaos transmitted a few more words to Xiang Bozi using telepathy. Then, his gaze swept across the crowd of cultivators. No matter what cultivation level they were at, all of them avoided his gaze and did not dare to look him in the eye. Eventually, Ancient Chaos's gaze fell on Ning Fan and he smiled with satisfaction. You, follow me. With a thought of his emperor's sense, Ancient Chaos and Ning Fan disappeared from the venue of the bronze platform. Xiang Bozi and the others would naturally clean up the mess here. In the 9th level of the Divine Tomb, 2 figures appeared in Ancient Chaos's tomb palace. As soon as they appeared, Ancient Chaos's Emperor Sense clone immediately turned into specks of light and disappeared. In the tomb palace, an illusion slowly appeared under the 27 bronze statues. It was Ancient Chaos. After resting for 2 years, Ancient Chaos's illusion did not recover much of its strength. This time, summoning his Emperor Sense clone made his body even weaker, his skin became drier, his white hair became more withered and his eyes became darker. Ning Fan's heart tightened and he felt a little sour. He understood that he had probably made ancient chaos even weaker when he summoned his Emperor Sense clone by crushing the jade pendant this time. The cultivation level of Great Emperor Ancient Chaos's Emperor Sense clone was only 1/10 of his illusory self and 1/100th of his strength when he was alive. This Emperor Sense clone had two major drawbacks. Firstly, the further away it was from the divine tomb, the weaker its strength would be. At most, it would not be able to leave the eastern sea star region. Secondly, every time he summoned his Emperor Sense clone, Ancient Chaos's illusory body would become much weaker. This Emperor Sense clone could not be used too many times. Otherwise, the illusory body would completely collapse sooner or later. Of course, if Great Emperor Ancient Chaos was willing to burn his illusory body and go crazy, his Emperor Sense clone could leave the Eastern Sea Star region and reach any place in the Eastern Heaven Immortal world. Therefore, the only two great secret races in the Eastern Heaven Immortal world, the Dark Race and the Southern Race, were afraid of Ancient Chaos. The other 8 great secret races of the other 3 heavens might not necessarily be afraid of Ancient Chaos because Ancient Chaos's footprints could not reach the other 3 heavens. If Ancient Chaos really slaughtered his way to the Dark Race, his illusory body would certainly be severely injured and on the verge of destruction. However, even if his illusory body was destroyed, Ancient Chaos did not care. No one could touch his disciple. If he touched her, he would have to pay the price. This was the tradition of the Lai Yuan sect. If Senior didn't help me today, I certainly wouldn't be able to achieve my goal. I will never dare to forget your kindness. Hee. You are my disciple. It's only right and proper for me to help you. What kind of kindness is this? Ancient Chaos patted Ning Fan's shoulder and suddenly coughed with a bitter smile. However, it's indeed a little forceful to summon my Emperor Sense clone outside the tomb today. The backlash of my illusory body isn't light. I'm afraid I won't be able to summon my Emperor Sense clone in a short period of time. But you don't have to worry. If you are in trouble, I will save you even if I have to burn my illusory body to death. It's because you are a disciple of the Lai Yuan sect. You are my disciple. You are very good. Since this generation's Shen Kong oppressed you, you should have destroyed his emperor prestige. Why do you have to endure it? I am very satisfied with what you have done. Ancient Chaos waved his hand and countless items immediately appeared on the ground. You can take these things. I have already told Xiang Bozi that the Godly Void Pavilion will pass the 10 Dark Time fruits sent by the Dark Race to you a month later. 1/3 of the primordial spirit blood essence of Emperor Shen Kong will also be passed to you. To you, the primordial spirit blood essence of an 8 tribulation immortal emperor is a great tonic. Use it wisely. My illusory body will go into seclusion to recuperate again. You can heal your injuries in this tomb palace. After you have recovered, you can leave on your own and travel the Eastern Heaven as the successor of Ancient Chaos. I don't think anyone will dare to do anything to you. Take this jade pendant. Within the Eastern Heaven, if you break this jade pendant at any time, I will save you and whoever hurts you will die. Ancient Chaos waved his hand and countless items immediately appeared on the ground. He took out another Emperor Sense jade pendant and passed it to Ning Fan. His illusory body, however, gradually dissipated with a smile. Originally, he wanted to tell Ning Fan something about the purple golden scroll that he had taken out previously. However, he did not tell Ning Fan about it in the end. It was not the time for Ning Fan to know about these secrets. When his cultivation base was strong enough, he could even pass the scroll to him. Take good care of your injuries. Don't leave any hidden injuries behind. This was the last sentence of Ancient Chaos' illusory body before it dissipated. Ning Fan held the jade pendant while Ancient Chaos's words echoed in his ears. His heart was constantly filled with warmth. If it wasn't for Ancient Chaos, he was afraid that he wouldn't be able to deter the great emperor of the Dark Race even if he used the killing emperor's jade pendant. If it wasn't for Ancient Chaos, the Godly Void Pavilion wouldn't have agreed to his request so easily and the little demoness wouldn't have gotten her freedom. Great Emperor Ancient Chaos has treated me well. I will definitely repay his kindness in the future. Ning Fan remained silent for a long time before his eyes swept across the items on the ground. The immortal bestowal tablet was taken away by ancient chaos and given to Ning Fan. It was a 12th Nirvana-acquired heavenly immortal treasure. It didn't have the power to attack or kill the enemy, but it contained a mysterious power. It was that power that could give the inscriber some secret techniques in return. It's a will to confer titles to the immortals. Ning Fan stroked the immortal bestowal tablet with his palm. After pondering for a while, he kept it temporarily into the profound Yin world. Previously, when he carved the word rain on the tablet, he did not reveal all of his abilities. Therefore, the secret technique he obtained was not a powerful one. If he has the time, he could carve the word rain or some other words on the tablet again. He should be able to obtain some powerful secret techniques. The storage pouches of the immortal emperors and quasi-saints of the dark race were scattered on the ground. All of them were given to Ning Fan by ancient chaos. Unfortunately, there were almost no useful items in these two storage pouches other than the Tao crystals and some commonly used pills. The dignified immortal emperors and quasi-saints left all their valuables in their homes. They actually did not bring them along with them. Originally, they came to the godly void pavilion to supervise the sacrificial offerings. Since there was no danger, they naturally would not bring too many items. Fortunately, there were quite a number of Tao crystals as well. The total of their Tao crystals amounted to 1.4 trillion. The few pills were all 9 revolution silver pill and above. All of them were extremely valuable. It seemed like there was still the void token that he had yet to collect. However, Ning Fan did not care about it. To him, the void token was no longer of much use. Ning Fan consumed a pill and began to heal his injuries in the tomb palace. He began to recover the blood essence that he had consumed during the tomb challenge. For 10 consecutive days, Ning Fan did not step out of his house. 10 days later, his injuries were fully healed. He bowed to the ancient chaotic tomb palace and left the divine tomb. The tomb challenge had already ended. Ning Fan was destined to become famous in the Eastern Heaven because of this. Reign Immortal Monarch, Plague King's sworn brother, Ancient Chaos successor. Each of these titles was enough to shock the world. As soon as Ning Fan left the divine tomb, he immediately headed to East Ocean Planet. The expressions of the cultivators he met along the way changed when they saw Ning Fan's arrival. The cultivators of the Godly Void Pavilion who were patrolling the planet did not even bother to check Ning Fan's arrival and directly let him enter the planet. As soon as he entered the planet, Ning Fan immediately descended in the direction of the Sect Pavilion of the 4 Divine Void Pavilions. The Sect Pavilion was the place where the elite disciples of the Godly Void Pavilion cultivated in seclusion. As soon as Ning Fan arrived, he directly flew towards the residence of the female disciples. Along the way, when the female cultivators of the Sect Pavilion saw Ning Fan's arrival, they either looked at him with respect or their beautiful eyes sparkled. Putting aside the background that Ning Fan had revealed, his various battle achievements were enough to make these female cultivators admire him. There were even some female cultivators who were bold enough to send a voice transmission flying sword to invite Ning Fan to a certain place for a rendezvous. Unfortunately, Ning Fan ignored all of these voice transmission flying swords. His traveling light went straight to the resting palace of Little Demoness. At this moment, Little Demoness was in seclusion in her own resting palace. On the peak of a short mountain not far away, an elderly man carrying a sword was sitting in a meditative posture. This person had attained the half-step void-shedding realm. He was none other than Elder Lu, who was responsible for protecting Little Demoness. In the past, he was supposed to protect Little Demoness on the surface, but in reality, he was just protecting the sacrificial offering. Staying by her side was more of a form of monitoring her. Today, the order that the Void Emperor gave him was to sincerely treat Little Demoness as the young lord of the divine Void realm and take good care of her. It was because the identity of Little Demoness now was different. She was the woman that the disciples of the ancient Chaos sect had taken a fancy to. Elder Lu was sitting cross-legged in cultivation on the short mountain when he suddenly sensed a traveling light speeding towards him. That traveling light did not avoid the Little Demoness chamber at all. Elder Lu did not dare to be careless and stood up abruptly. His 10 fingers formed a sword seal. The acquired immortal sword on his back immediately flew out of the sword case and turned into a ray of sword rainbow, blocking the incoming person. Who are you? How dare you? How dare you trespass into the young lord's resting palace? Don't you know that this place has been listed as a forbidden area? Before he could finish his words, his eyes suddenly changed. The ray of sword rainbow that he slashed out was suddenly hit by a strong force when it had just flown halfway. 5 rays of sword light that were shrouded in rain intent flashed past. Elder Lu did not even see how his divine ability was broken and his immortal sword was already sent flying back. In the next moment, 5 rays of rain sword shadows that were revolving around Ning Fan's body slowly appeared. It's actually the Rain Immortal Monarch. Elder Lu's expression changed drastically in an instant. There was no one in the Eastern Heaven Immortal world who did not know that the Rain Immortal Monarch, Ning Fan, was a dignified disciple of the ancient Chaos sect. He actually slashed Ning Fan's sword. Although it was to protect the sleeping palace, there was no guarantee that Ning Fan would not blame him. A dignified half-step void separating old monster was actually afraid of Ning Fan's blame. It might sound funny if it was told to others, but it had become a fact today. Are you Asi's guard elder? Ning Fan asked indifferently without any anger. Elder Lu's sword strike didn't have any killing intent. He could tell that Elder Lu had left some leeway. Ning Fan's spirit sense swept across little Demonist's chamber imperceptibly. The corner of his mouth rose slightly. His purpose of coming here today was to destroy the sacrificial offering of the dark race. Although the dark race was scared off by Emperor Wang Gu, they might not really give up on little Demonist, unless little Demonist herself had lost the qualification to become the sacrificial offering. It was said that the sacrificial offering must be a virgin. If she was not a virgin, she would not be able to be sacrificed. In the past, Ning Fan would not dare to use such an extreme method to deprive little Demoness of her identity as a sacrificial offering. But now, he dared to do it. Chapter 848. Seeing that Ning Fan did not have any intention to blame him, Elder Lu heaved a sigh of relief. He sheathed his sword and forced a smile on his face. Rain Immortal Monarch, are you here to look for young lord? Yes. You don't need to guard this place anymore. You can leave now. Ning Fan kept the 5 immortal rain swords. The rain star on his glabella flickered. The way he looked at Elder Lu made him shudder. He was a half-step void-shedding realm old monster, but he could feel a trace of danger from Ning Fan. It wasn't a sense of danger brought by external objects, but Ning Fan's own strength. Elder Lu swallowed his saliva, thinking that Ning Fan was indeed an expert who had passed through the 24 tombs. Although he was just a ghost profound realm expert, his strength was unfathomable. He could pass through the 24 tombs, but there were void-shedding realm tomb masters in the 24 tombs. Ning Fan's strength was naturally above him. Hee, since Rain Immortal Monarch doesn't want me to disturb you, I will take my leave for now. Elder Lu was a tactful person. After exchanging a few more pleasantries with Ning Fan, he bid farewell and left. Ning Fan was the only one left on the short mountain. He looked at the palace at the foot of the mountain with a faint smile. His figure flashed and appeared in the palace. There was only a spirit sense isolation formation in the palace, but there was no formation to prevent anyone from entering or leaving. Inside the little Demoness bedroom, there were many female disciples with low cultivation levels serving her. When they saw Ning Fan, a few nascent soul realm female cultivators who did not know Ning Fan stopped him. They wanted to question him, but they were stopped by other female cultivators who knew Ning Fan's identity. He is Rain Immortal Monarch. He is qualified to come here. What? He is Rain Immortal Monarch. Shouldn't Rain Immortal Monarch have a ferocious face and 3 heads and 8 arms? Why does he look like this? He looks harmless, but his identity is so terrifying. Shh. Keep quiet. Do you want to die? There are some things that you shouldn't say. Ning Fan did not care about these low-grade female cultivators. He just sent them away temporarily. He walked towards little Demoness Palace's bedroom step by step. He could smell the fragrance of tea outside the room. It wasn't the smell of Qilin tea, but another kind of spirit tea. Ning Fan didn't know much about spirit tea, but he could tell that this was a kind of tea that was carefully brewed. There was even a soft chuckle. Hee hee, my husband is so impressive. Elder Lu is such a sticky candy that I can't chase away no matter how hard I try. With just a word from my husband, he was chased away. As expected of the ancient chaos successor. Ning Fan's arrival had caused a huge commotion, so the little demoness naturally wouldn't know about it. Even though the little demoness was all smiles, she was feeling a little uneasy in her heart. With her intelligence, she had already vaguely guessed the purpose of Ning Fan's visit today. Ning Fan was here to eat her up. Otherwise, there was no need for him to send everyone away. She understood that Ning Fan wanted to help her get rid of her identity as a sacrificial offering. However, she was not mentally prepared to have sex with a certain someone. She was a demoness after all. How could she be eaten up so easily? Hee hee, this calming desire tea can calm one's mind and qi, clearing away internal heat. Any male cultivator who consumes it will not have any lust for 3 months. If they do, they will feel nausea, vomiting and diarrhea. A certain part of their body will also become swollen and painful. It has no effect on female cultivators. Little demoness supported her cheek with one hand while fiddling with the red clay stove on the table with the other hand. She was cooking the calming desire tea with an evil smile on the corner of her mouth. She believed that after drinking this tea, Ning Fan would not be able to have any lust for her. Naturally, he would not be able to have sex with her. The moment Ning Fan pushed the door open, little demoness put away her evil smile and looked at Ning Fan with a harmless expression. After Ning Fan sat opposite her, she took out a glazed teacup and poured a cup of spirit tea for Ning Fan like she always did. Is my husband's injury fully healed? Little demoness blinked her eyes and asked innocently. Yes. Don't worry, CI. Ning Fan played with the teacup in his hand and smiled faintly. He seemed to have discovered something, but at the same time, it seemed like he had not discovered anything. My husband saved me from danger and helped me get rid of my sacrificial status. I have no way to repay you, so I can only use tea in place of wine to toast my husband. The little demoness remained calm and drank a cup of spirit tea. Then, her beautiful eyes looked at Ning Fan's, as if urging him to drink a cup with her. Ning Fan's knuckles lightly knocked on the sandalwood table and looked at little demoness with a faint smile. He did not know much about spirit tea, but he was extremely sensitive to lust. If this spirit tea was drunk, ordinary male cultivators would have to lower their heads for 3 months. CI, do you really want me to drink this cup of spirit tea? Ning Fan asked with a smile. Yes, my husband is a little hot right now. Drink a cup of spirit tea to calm it down. Little demoness smiled back at Ning Fan charmingly. Alright, it's time to calm down. But a cup of spirit tea doesn't seem to be enough. Ning Fan picked up the teacup and drank it in one gulp. The tea had almost no effect on Ning Fan, who possessed the 6 desires bone. Seeing Ning Fan drink the tea, little demoness immediately smiled evilly, thinking that her plan worked. Ning Fan stood up without a change in expression. With a wave of his hand, he arranged an isolation formation in the bedroom. Hee hee, why did my husband arrange a formation in my bedroom? If I didn't know better, I would think that you want to do something to me. Little demoness was not worried that Ning Fan would do anything to her at this moment. Her figure flashed and she was already leaning on the couch, gently shaking her bare feet. Her snow-white and smooth feet gently shook, as if she wanted to deliberately awaken Ning Fan's lust and trigger the spirit tea to take effect. It was unknown whether it was intentional or not, but she even stretched her waist, revealing a large portion of her white jade-like arms, and let out a cat-like moan, incomparably seductive. A pair of black gem-like eyes seemed to be dripping water, looking at Ning Fan with a faint smile. My husband, I feel very uncomfortable, please help me. She did it on purpose, she definitely did it on purpose. Little demoness wantonly teased Ning Fan, trying to arouse his lust and make the tea take effect. She was waiting for Ning Fan to hold a certain swollen part and feel a slight pain, but this scene didn't appear for a long time. Do you really want to seduce me? Ning Fan was still smiling. He leisurely poured another cup of spirit tea and drank it in one gulp. Hee hee, this little girl has nothing to repay you with, so I can only devote myself to you. Why hasn't my husband come to pick it yet? This little girl feels very uncomfortable. Little Demoness giggled, but she suddenly had a bad feeling in her heart. Before she could figure out where this bad feeling came from, Ning Fan had already stood up and walked towards the couch step by step. His eyes revealed a hint of lust, but the tea didn't take effect. Miscalculation. This tea has no effect on little Fan Fan. Little Demoness finally understood where this bad feeling came from. Her pretty face blushed, and with a "chi" sound, she jumped up from the couch, wanting to escape. Unfortunately, before she could take 2 steps, she was directly restrained by a pair of iron-like arms. In the next moment, she felt her body becoming light. She was actually carried by Ning Fan and placed on the couch of the imperial concubine, then pressed down. Little Fan Fan, don't. Little Demoness wanted to cry but had no tears to push Ning Fan's chest, but how could she push it away? Her small feet directly kicked towards Ning Fan's certain part, but Ning Fan directly grabbed her ankle and caressed it along her smooth ankle into her skirt. It was a soft and slippery touch. Hearing the sound of clothes tearing, Little Demoness' black skirt immediately turned into rags on the ground. As Ning Fan's palm caressed her, her breathing gradually became rapid and light, and her pretty face was so red that it could drip blood. Little Fan. Fan. Don't. Her weak resistance from her hand couldn't stop what was about to happen. Her petite body was completely restrained, and could only sink bit by bit. Her softness was being possessed by him, and she was powerless to stop it, and she didn't want to stop it. In the bedroom, it was unknown when it started, but gradually, there was a woman's low moan that seemed to be in pain and pleasure. It wasn't until the dead of the night that the low moan gradually disappeared. The red clay stove on the sandalwood table had long been extinguished, and the room was filled with a melancholy smell. Little Demoness was naked, curled up in Ning Fan's embrace like a cat. There were still a few drops of tears hanging on her eyebrows as she slept soundly. In the muddy area, the blood was dark red and enchanting. Ning Fan looked at the tears of Little Demoness and felt speechless. These tears were all lies. The first time was when he conquered her, and the next few times, it was her ruthlessly taking revenge and plundering him. Although he had tasted the taste of Little Demoness too many times during the tribulation of life and death, this time was the most real and the most beautiful. Little Fan Fan is really shameless, worthy of being the descendant of ancient chaos. I like it. Little Demoness said in her sleep, and the words she said made Ning Fan not know whether to laugh or cry. But when he looked inside his body, Ning Fan's eyes began to become serious. After a period of making love, Ning Fan's body had a trace of indescribable and unknown power. There was a trace of dark matter in his blood. If there was some tribulation blood in his body when his blood merged with the tribulation sense, then there was a trace of dark blood in his body when he had sex with Little Demoness this time. Ning Fan moved the power of the dark blood in his body and stretched out his palm. Outside the bedroom, in the night, traces of dark force immediately gathered towards his palm. This is the power of sovereign. Ning Fan's eyes changed. With the addition of dark blood in his body, he could actually activate a trace of the sovereign power of the dark Tao law. In the past, he could only rely on the power of yin and yang to activate a trace of the sovereign power of the rain Tao law, but now, there was another dark Tao law. Could this dark blood be the reason why the dark race attacked the female cultivator of Shao family? Ning Fan's eyes turned cold as if he had understood something. To the dark race, the sovereign power of the dark Tao law was definitely a supreme treasure. After dual cultivation, he could obtain the dark blood of the female cultivator of Shao family, but it was just a trace. If he could refine the primordial spirit of the female cultivator of Shao family into wine through the sacrificial bell, would he be able to obtain more dark blood? Ning Fan placed his palm on Little Demoness' body and closed his eyes, using the power of his medicine soul to sense the condition of her body. Currently, 90% of the dark blood in little Demoness's body had disappeared. The remaining 10% was evaporating bit by bit. Her dark blood had been taken away by Ning Fan. From today onwards, she no longer had any value to the dark race. Ning Fan withdrew the power of his medicine soul and opened his eyes, looking at the sleeping little Demoness with a complicated expression. At this moment, he thought of Sun Luo and Xiao Qianyu. Sun Luo still couldn't understand why Xiao Qianyu was targeted by the dark race. He had sacrificed his life to resurrect Xiao Qianyu, but he didn't know if there was still dark blood in her body, and whether she would be targeted by the dark race again. A trace of tiredness surged into his heart. He hugged little Demoness and fell into a deep sleep. After that, Ning Fan stayed in little Demoness's bedroom for more than 10 days. He purposely made the whole Godly Void Pavilion know that little Demoness was no longer a virgin and had fallen into his hands. At this point, little Demoness had completely lost her right to be the sacrificial offering. On the Eastern Ocean planet, a menacing black traveling light was approaching from afar, stepping on 4 layers of dark clouds. Without a doubt, the person who was stepping on the dark clouds was a cultivator of the dark race. No one dared to stop him from doing whatever he wanted in the Eastern Ocean planet. It was a young man of the dark race with an intermediate true crossing realm cultivation base. He followed a powerful expert of the dark race to the Godly Void Pavilion to hand over the dark time fruits. Unknowingly, he went straight to little Demoness's bedroom with a trace of anger in his eyes. He came here only to verify one thing. He wanted to verify whether little Demoness was no longer a virgin and whether Enshui had been lost. Has Enshui really been lost? Is the wine-sharing ceremony of my clan not going to be held as scheduled after 1,000 years? Without Enshui, even if I become an emperor one day, I won't be able to take the throne. So what if you're the descendant of ancient chaos? Why should I be afraid of the disciple of a dead man? The old ancestor of the clan has been cultivating for too many years. His courage is getting smaller and smaller. Not only did he give up 10 dark time fruits, but he also gave Enshui away. How hateful. The young man sped all the way here. As he approached the bedroom, he was stopped by a sword ray. The one who stopped him was Elder Lu, a cultivator of the dark race. Elder Lu was shocked, but he still stopped the young man. Who are you? Why are you trespassing into the bedroom of the young master of the Godly Void Pavilion? Elder Lu asked in a tone that was neither servile nor overbearing. Since ancient chaos had scared off the dark race, the cultivators of the Godly Void Pavilion were no longer afraid of the dark race. The young man from the dark race frowned, as if he was extremely dissatisfied with being stopped. His eyes narrowed dangerously and he said coldly, I am Enwuya, the 9th young emperor of the dark race. The 9th young emperor. Elder Lu's eyes widened when he heard this. Those who obtained the title of young emperor of the dark race usually had a chance of becoming an immortal emperor in their lifetime. Since Enwuya was the 9th young emperor of the dark race, Elder Lu did not dare to slight him. You, back off. I want to see Xiao Qianxi. Enwuya said arrogantly. Elder Lu frowned slightly. He did not back off, nor did he say anything to anger Enwuya. He only used his actions to show that he would not give way. You're courting death. Dark art, sky breaker. Enwuya scoffed and clawed at the sky. Countless black fissures appeared in the sky. Millions of shadows of black crows appeared in the sky. As soon as they appeared, they spontaneously combusted. The sound of sky breaker reverberated in the air. The moment the sky was torn apart, a giant dark claw came down from the fissures in the sky, heading straight for Elder Lu. Elder Lu's eyes darkened. He immediately slashed out with his acquired immortal sword. He changed his sword technique and the sky was filled with sword rays. The sword rays collided with the dark claw, but they both collapsed and melted. It was extremely strange. Enwuya scoffed disdainfully. The giant dark claw immediately shattered into countless shadows of crows and charged at Elder Lu. Elder Lu spread out a sword net in an attempt to stop the black crows. However, the black crows penetrated the sword net and rushed into Elder Lu's body. The moment the black crows entered Elder Lu's body, Nwuya changed his hand seal and countless black crows exploded in his body. In just an instant, Elder Lu, who was a half-step away from the void-shedding realm, was severely injured by Nwuya, who was only at the mid-crossing truth realm. Dark crow body. Elder Lu exclaimed in shock. If Nwuya did not have such an amazing physique, he would not be able to defeat Elder Lu with his mid-crossing truth cultivation base. The tremendous ripples of the battle shocked countless cultivators of the sect and pavilion. Even Ning Fan and the little demoness who were in the chamber were startled. Countless disciples of the sect and pavilion stared at the scene in disbelief. They could not believe that Elder Lu, who was a half-step away from the void-shedding realm, was defeated by a mid-crossing truth cultivator. Even though this Dujin middle-stage cultivator came from the dark race, the combat strength he displayed was still shocking. Ning Fan and the little demoness walked out of the chamber side by side. One was dressed in white while the other was dressed in black. And Nwuya's eyes darkened when he saw the two of them walking out. Judging from the chi of the little demoness, it was obvious that she was no longer a virgin. This meant that her dark blood had been taken away by someone. And Nwuya's eyes then fell on Ning Fan and snorted disdainfully. "You are the descendant of ancient chaos. The champion of this year's Godly Void Pavilion Tomb competition. So what if I am?" Ning Fan frowned and said indifferently. "Fight with me. If you lose, you will die." And Nwuya sneered. "Not interested." Ning Fan pulled the little demoness and wanted to return to the chamber. And Nwuya, on the other hand, waved his hand. Immediately, millions of black crows dashed towards Ning Fan ferociously with intense killing intent. The descendant of ancient chaos is just so. The ancient chaos sect is not worth mentioning. And Nwuya grinned, revealing his white teeth. He wanted to kill Ning Fan with this strike. His clansmen did not dare to touch Ning Fan, but he wanted to see why Ning Fan could not be touched. Ning Fan's eyes suddenly turned cold. He suddenly turned around and his eyes were filled with killing intent. His figure flashed and disappeared from the spot. He could ignore Nwuya's provocation, but Nwuya dared to insult the ancient chaos sect. He would not tolerate this. Although he had never called Wangu master, he had subconsciously taken Wangu as his master. No one could insult his master. At this moment, the rain star on his glabella was unsealed. At this moment, his aura was almost close to the peak of crossing true realm. No one saw how Ning Fan made his move. The millions of black crows had already collapsed. A sense of danger suddenly approached him. And Nwuya did not have the time to react. Suddenly, he was hit by an irresistible rain intent. As if he had suffered a heavy blow, he coughed out blood and retreated in the sky. A white-robed figure slowly appeared in front of him. When he looked at the white-robed figure again, Nwuya's heart unexpectedly gave birth to a trace of fear. The ninth young emperor of the dark race, Nwuya. A cold light flashed in Ning Fan's eyes. Boundless blood flame immediately extended from his feet. Evil chi and devil might shrouded the heaven and earth. "Do you dare to repeat what you said just now? Do you dare? Do you dare?" Chapter 849. As soon as Ning Fan's voice resounded in the air, there was a sudden rainstorm between heaven and earth. The rainstorm was infused with Ning Fan's surging killing intent. The raindrops fell into Nwuya's ears bit by bit. His voice reverberated incessantly. "Do you dare? Do you dare?" Bang.it was as if an invisible giant fist had landed on Nwuya's Dao heart, causing him to lose control of his mind. All the defenses of his Dao heart crumbled under the raindrops. As his mind lost its focus, Nwuya's vision darkened and he fell into layers of illusions. The world of his mind was filled with darkness. Within that darkness, the 7 stars of the Big Dipper gradually emerged. "Little friend, please show mercy." A cry of surprise could be heard from afar, trying to stop Nwuya. Unfortunately, he was still a step too late. Collapse. Ning Fan's eyes flashed with a devil light and Nwuya immediately let out a muffled groan. At this moment, the world of his mind was forcefully crushed by Ning Fan's Tao elephant power. The power of the Tao elephant continued to invade Wuya's sea of consciousness, evaporating it. His sea of consciousness collapsed. As his mind and sea of consciousness crumbled, Wuya's eyes became hollow and he smiled like an idiot. A dignified mid-true crossing realm expert who could defeat Elder Lu with a single strike had actually turned him into an idiot under a single strike from Ning Fan's Tao elephant. Hiss, innumerable gasps could be heard from the disciples of the general pavilion in all directions. Under the shocked gazes of countless people, an 8-colored old man who was stepping on 9 layers of dark clouds slowly appeared. He was the quasi-saint of the dark race, Entiendo. At this moment, Entiendo was standing in front of Wuya to protect him. His face was extremely gloomy and helpless. He knew that Wuya had come to Ning Fan's place to pick a fight with Ning Fan, so he did not stop him. After all, in his opinion, Ancient Chaos would be too embarrassed to intervene in a fight between juniors. Moreover, he did not think that Wuya would lose to Ning Fan. More or less, he had the thought of letting Wuya teach Ning Fan a lesson. Wuya was the 9th young emperor of the dark race. He had countless defensive treasures on him. If Ning Fan were to fight him normally, he might not be able to harm a single hair on Wuya's body even if he goes all out. However, Ning Fan did not use any of his abilities. He only used his baleful qi and devil might to disturb Wuya's mind. Then, he used the power of the Tao elephant to destroy Wuya's spiritual consciousness. His methods were cunning and his temperament was even more ruthless. Now, Wuya's spiritual wisdom had been destroyed. All injuries in the world could be easily treated, but once one's spiritual wisdom was damaged, it would be extremely difficult to rebuild it. Tiendo's face darkened. He thought to himself, now that Wuya's consciousness has been destroyed, no matter how good his physique is, he's still a cripple. Perhaps, Wuya's fate would be to become an excellent body for the other cultivators of his clan to possess. Young friend Ning, no matter what, Wuya is still the Dark Tribe's 9th young emperor. Aren't you being a little too ruthless by destroying his consciousness? Aren't you going to give me an explanation? Tiendo said coldly. Facing the ancient Chaos Great Emperor, he was naturally fearful. However, he was still a quasi-saint after all, a peak 4 heavens expert. There was no need for him to be afraid of a junior like Ning Fan. He insulted my master. So what if I destroyed his consciousness? As for senior questioning me now, are you trying to bully me with your quasi-saint cultivation base? Ning Fan was fearless in the face of a quasi-saint. He patted his storage pouch and took out an Emperor Sense jade pendant. When Entiendo saw the jade pendant, his expression changed. He still remembered that it was Ning Fan who crushed this jade pendant that day, which summoned the ancient Chaos Great Emperor's Emperor Sense clone. He didn't expect that Ning Fan actually had the Emperor Sense jade pendant that was bestowed by the ancient Chaos Great Emperor. When he thought of the ancient Chaos Great Emperor's name, Entiendo's expression softened and he laughed. Young friend, you're right. Wuya was rude and insulted the ancient Chaos Great Emperor. He deserved to be killed. Young friend, by destroying his consciousness, you're indeed being merciful. Today, I've come to the Godly Void Pavilion to deliver the Dark Time Fruit to the ancient Chaos Great Emperor. I don't have any ill intentions. Young friend, please don't be impulsive and crush the jade pendant. It won't be good for both of us. Farewell. Entiendo's words were half a warning and half a threat. As soon as he finished speaking, he flicked his sleeve and left with Wuya whose consciousness had been destroyed. Looking at the direction where Entiendo left, Ning Fan frowned. Then, he relaxed and kept the Emperor Sense jade pendant carefully. It was true that he wouldn't crush the jade pendant. He just wanted to intimidate the quasi-saint of the dark race. The illusory body of the ancient Chaos Great Emperor was weak and couldn't withstand the consumption of the Emperor Sense clone. If possible, Ning Fan hoped that this jade pendant would only be used as a deterrent for the rest of its life. It was the same for Shadi's descending jade slip. Shadi probably couldn't withstand the consumption of the Emperor Sense clone. The dark race is afraid of the ancient Chaos Great Emperor, not me. They might not dare to attack me for the sake of the ancient Chaos Great Emperor, but they also think highly of themselves and might not be polite to me. If I want to establish a foothold in this cultivation world, I still have to rely on myself. My cultivation base is already at the peak of the Ghost Profound realm. I'm only one step away from the Dujin realm, but this step isn't easy to take. To become a cultivator of the Dujin realm, not only do I have to prove my own Tao and condense my own Tao image, I also have to find my own Tao truth. Tao truth is the comprehension of the word, truth, and the process of integrating the truth into one's Tao and getting rid of the impurities. What is truth? Ning Fan withdrew his thoughts and the rainstorm between heaven and earth immediately stopped. The word, truth, was harder to comprehend than void. In the past, he encountered Wu Chen while observing the rain in the rain world. At that time, Wu Chen was comprehending the truth. In his mind, he couldn't help but recall the first time he met Wu Chen. Wu Chen's words were still echoing in his ears. The first time they met was in the rain. The great Tao of the world is the purest and truest. Every flower and every rain has its own truth. Brother Ning must be comprehending the void through the rain, but what I see isn't the void. The second time he met Wu Chen was in the snowstorm of the Sword World. At that time, Wu Chen was still comprehending the truth and had already gained something. He. There's Tao in wine and truth in mortals. There are always great Tao hidden in the marketplace. Living here is very comfortable. I can temporarily forget about the endless killing. Fuck. The third time he met Wu Chen was in the Eastern Heaven. At that time, Wu Chen had already completed his mortal transformation. He had obtained the true path and was trying to break through the bottleneck of the crossing truth. Ning Fan ignored the attention of all the disciples of the pavilion. He suddenly raised his head and looked at the clear sky that was washed by the rain. He seemed to be in deep thoughts. If I want to break through to the true crossing realm, do I also need to be like Brother Wu and seek the truth through mortal transformation? Seeking the truth through mortal transformation. I need to find a pure land in the mortal world and it will take a lot of time. It seems like I won't be able to break through to the true crossing realm within a short period of time. Ning Fan and the little demoness returned to his bedroom. He did not care about what the outside world would say about him. A few days later, Xiang Bozi sent an envoy to invite Ning Fan to the Divine Space Star for a chat. He wanted Ning Fan to follow the ancient Chaos Great Emperor's order and hand over the Dark Time Fruit and 1/3 of the Divine Space Great Emperor's primordial spirit and blood essence to Ning Fan. Since Xiang Bozi invited him, Ning Fan naturally did not dare to delay and immediately rushed to the Divine Space Star. In this godly void pavilion, Ning Fan was the only senior that Ning Fan slightly respected. 3 days had passed since he left and returned. Ning Fan brought back 10 Dark Time Fruits, 1/3 of the Divine Space Great Emperor's primordial spirit and blood essence and a token of Xiang Bozi. With this token, he could freely enter and exit the main pavilion of the Godly Void Pavilion's commercial pavilion. He could also take the items that he needs for cultivation in the pavilion. This was the request that Xiang Bozi personally agreed to Ancient Chaos Great Emperor. Dark Time Fruit. Only the Dark Time Tree of the Dark Race could bear this kind of fruit. It would only bear one fruit every 3 million years. Consuming one fruit could increase a cultivator's cultivation base by 400,000 years, greatly increasing a cultivator's magic power and saving a cultivator 400,000 years of bitter cultivation. With Ning Fan's identity as a 3 apertures ancient god, consuming one fruit could increase a total of 3,200,000 years of cultivation base. Consuming 10 fruits could increase a person's cultivation base by 32 million years. What kind of concept was 32 million years of cultivation base? If a mortal could absorb the power of 10 Dark Time Fruits at 100%, he could break through to the late shedding void realm or even the peak shedding void realm. Of course, it was impossible for a mortal to endure the medicinal power of 10 Dark Time Fruits. Moreover, a mortal would not be able to refine 8 times faster than an ancient god like Ning Fan. Even old monsters shedding void realm would need tens of thousands of years to refine a single Dark Time Fruit. Ning Fan's speed of refining heavenly ingredients and earthly treasures was considered extremely fast among cultivators at the same level as him. However, his cultivation base was still low after all. Completely digesting a single dark time fruit would take him at least 1,000 years. Naturally, as his cultivation base improved, his speed of refining the dark time fruit would also increase. Now, when he wanted to refine the dark time fruit, his speed was as slow as a turtle's crawl. From time to time, suppressed moans and Ning Fan's heavy breathing could be heard from little Demoness's bedroom. Even though the female disciples who were serving outside were already used to such sounds, they still blushed after listening to such sounds for a whole night. When the moon rose to the middle of the sky, the women's moans gradually turned into sweet murmurs in their sleep. Ning Fan put on his clothes and covered little Demoness with a thin blanket. Then, his figure flashed and he entered the profound Yin world. The current profound Yin world had been divided into two worlds, the East and the West. The East world was where the women lived while the West world was where Ning Fan cultivated. The reason why he entered the profound Yin world was to swallow the first dark time fruit into his body. He did not intend to refine it for the time being. After the fusion of the two locks, entering the profound Yin world or not would not affect his speed of refining the heavenly ingredients and earthly treasures. However, devouring the dark time fruit after entering the profound Yin world would be able to isolate the energy waves and not attract the attention of some old monsters. After leaving the 9 dark time fruits in the Western world, Ning Fan only took 1 dark time fruit and walked out of the cave. He sat cross-legged on the beautiful mountains and rivers outside the cave to regulate his breathing. It was a strange fruit the size of a walnut. It was as black as ink and its skin was filled with a vast energy wave. When his magical power had reached its peak, Ning Fan took out the dark time fruit and placed it on his knees. Then, he circulated his magical power with both of his hands and continuously cast immortal incantations on the dark time fruit. Consuming the dark time fruit required a special immortal incantation. Otherwise, it would only bring more harm than good. Ning Fan moved like lightning. After 2 hours, he had already cast millions of immortal incantations on the dark time fruit. Only then did he reveal a solemn expression. After pondering for a long time, he finally opened his mouth and swallowed the dark time fruit. The immortal incantation sealed the flow of the dark time fruit's medicinal power. After the dark time fruit entered his body, it did not melt. Instead, it turned into a ray of black light and flew to his dantian. Then, it was caught by his primordial spirit. At this moment, there was a jade locket on the neck of his primordial spirit. It was the yin-yang locket. There was a sword light circling around his body. It was the memory-severing Dao sword. There was an illusionary pill inside his body. It was the life illusion pill. He was holding a walnut-sized fruit in his arms. He was slowly absorbing the immense power of the fruit. It was the dark time fruit. The speed of his absorption was as slow as the crawl of a tortoise. However, the power of the dark time fruit was fusing into his body at every moment. His magical power would increase day by day as he slowly refined the dark time fruit. What surprised Ning Fan was that the dark blood in his body was slowly increasing as the dark time fruit was being refined. The speed of the increase was naturally slow, but it made Ning Fan's breathing stagnate. Immediately, his face turned solemn. This dark blood was obtained after he slept with the little Demoness. This dark blood could allow Ning Fan to display a trace of Palm Realm power. As the dark blood increased, the amount of Palm Realm power that Ning Fan could display would naturally increase as well. Perhaps, I can use this dark blood to cultivate the dark yin-yang, and make it one of the 27 Palm Realm Dao laws in the future. Ning Fan muttered to himself. After a long time, Ning Fan seemed to have made up his mind. With a sway of his body, he flew up to the sky of the Western world. In the sky, there was an ancient and solemn 10-floored stone pagoda. It was the hidden immortal pagoda that ancient chaos gave Ning Fan. It contained countless ancient cultivation methods. Just like the hidden immortal pagoda, Ning Fan went straight to the 9th floor. He was not interested in the first to 8 stars cultivation methods in the first 8 floors. Only the 9 stars cultivation methods caught his attention. In the 9th floor, there were only 34 9 stars cultivation method jade slips. Among these jade slips, Ning Fan found a dark elemental cultivation method. Black Radiance Scripture. The 9 stars divine art that only the elites of the dark race were qualified to cultivate. He knew that the ancient Chaos Immortal Emperor had the cultivation method of the dark race in his hands. On that day, Great Emperor Ancient Chaos had mentioned the name of the dark race's ancestor and even displayed the lost ultimate art of the dark race. It was not surprising that this hidden immortal pagoda had the highest cultivation method of the dark race. With this cultivation method, I can cultivate the fledgling dark star if I have the time. Then, I can use the power of the dark blood and the dark time fruit to cultivate the dark yin-yang. Great Emperor Ancient Chaos helped me cultivate the rain yin-yang art. As for the dark yin-yang art, I need to cultivate it step by step with my own strength. After temporarily putting the Black Radiance Scripture aside, Ning Fan went to look through the other 9 stars cultivation methods. Among these cultivation methods, he found a 9 stars corpse Tao devil art, grave transformation scripture. This cultivation method was much stronger than the 8 stars corpse Tao devil art, heavenly corpse transformation scripture. Since Ning Fan had already cultivated the corpse devil physique, he would be able to cultivate the corpse yin-yang art in the future. Other than that, Ning Fan also found a 9 stars fire elemental demon art, green one scripture. Ning Fan had cultivated the Tao of Fire for many years and he had quite a lot of knowledge about it. If he has the time, he would also cultivate this green one scripture and cultivate the first yin-yang of the 9 demon yin-yang art step by step. Green one yin-yang art to control the flames of heaven and earth. Unfortunately, cultivating the 27 yin-yang art was not something that could be accomplished in one go. Currently, Ning Fan could only plan for it. If he really wants to cultivate it, he would need to improve his cultivation base a little more. Inside the Eastern Ocean Bell, there are still countless extremely pure Tao laws of void. These Tao laws of void will be a strong guarantee for me to cultivate the yin-yang art of the world in the future. The void was the control of space. Those who cultivated the power of the void to the extreme would be the immortal emperor who controlled the world and could create a world with a wave of their hand. In the past, when I awakened the Fuli demon blood, I once obtained the Fuli clan's demon art, Fuli shadow devouring. Even though this cultivation method does not mention how to remove the sin seal, it can help me cultivate the Fuli yin-yang. The only problem is that I don't know where to find enough Fuli demon power to cultivate this yin-yang step by step. The cultivation method in my hands is enough for me to cultivate the 27 yin-yang art. However, without the corresponding Tao laws, I won't be able to condense the Ardent Essence crystal with the Ardent Essence technique and cultivate their respective yin and yang. Ning Fan remained silent in the hidden immortal tower for a long time. Finally, he decided to leave the tower. However, just before he left, he suddenly stopped and turned his head, looking at the sealed stone door of the 10th floor. As long as the seal was broken, he would be able to enter through the stone door and climb the stone stairs to reach the 10th floor. According to Wang Gu, the 10th floor was the place where the key was sealed. As for what the key was, Ning Fan had no idea. Currently, he was looking at the giant sealed door of the 10th floor with an extremely solemn expression. Although he was so close to the giant sealed door, he actually sensed a trace of qi that made him panic. It was very familiar yet very strange, it was so familiar that it made his blood boil. But it was so strange that he couldn't remember who that qi belonged to. You don't remember? The faint voice of a woman came from the giant sealed door. Ning Fan was sure that he had never heard this voice before. It was definitely his first time hearing it. However, the moment he heard this voice, he felt a tearing pain in his heart. Life is a grand meeting. If you understand it, please cherish it. You understand all of this, but you don't remember it. Who are you? Why are you sealed in the 10th floor? Ning Fan's expression changed. He immediately walked towards the sealed stone door, but before he could get close to it, he was forced back by the heavy qi of the sealed stone door. This sealed stone door could only be opened by someone with at least the strength of a saint. I am your key, but you have forgotten about me. You don't know me. The voice of the woman gradually disappeared and didn't resound again. Ning Fan stared at the stone door for a long time. In the end, he suppressed his urge to ask Gu. His heart was no longer as impulsive as before. When he looked at the stone door again, there was a trace of confusion in his eyes. I must have seen her somewhere before, but who is she? Ning Fan's current feeling was like a mortal who was in a dream. He felt that everything in the dream was familiar. He felt that he should remember something, but he just couldn't remember it. When he woke up, he would be enlightened, but when he tried to recall it, he would forget what he had encountered in the dream. If life was just a dream, reincarnation was a dream that was constantly intertwined. There was nothing that couldn't be past, but there was no going back. When he woke up from the dream, he would no longer be you and I would no longer be me. I'm leaving. I will open this stone door myself one day. Ning Fan turned and walked out of the hidden immortal tower. He didn't hear the gratified voice of a woman coming from the stone door. Little Butterfly has grown up. Chapter 850. Time flowed like water. 3 months had passed. During these 3 months, Ning Fan stayed in the little demoness palace and went out together with her. The divine void realm cultivators were already used to it. As for the voice that sealed the stone door of the hidden immortal pagoda, it never came out again. The little demoness had been very depressed recently. Whenever Ning Fan had time, he would carry her to the bed as if he was always full of desire. Only at night would he quietly enter the profound Yin world to cultivate after the little demoness had fallen into a deep slumber. Little Fan Fan is really energetic, as expected of the inheritor of ancient chaos. In the dead of the night, the little demoness lay on Ning Fan's body weakly and commented in her heart. When she thought of what Ning Fan had done to her in the past 3 months, her face was burning hot. A wave of exhaustion came and she fell into a deep slumber under Ning Fan's assault. It's really tiring to have a lustful husband. Seeing that the little demoness had fallen asleep, Ning Fan withdrew from her body and covered her with a thin blanket. Then, he put on his clothes and got up. The reason why he did it tirelessly was naturally not just for a moment of pleasure. There was still a trace of the dark blood in the little demoness body that had yet to disperse. In the past 3 months, Ning Fan had used countless dual cultivation sessions to erase all the remaining dark blood qi in her body. The process was naturally extremely erotic, needless to say. After the little demoness fell asleep, Ning Fan's figure flashed and entered the cave dwelling in the western world of the profound Yin world to cultivate in seclusion. For the past 3 months, Ning Fan would come here every night to absorb the power of the Divine Void Emperor's primordial spirit and blood essence. After separating 1/3 of the blood essence from the primordial spirit, the Divine Void Emperor's body became weak and he immediately went into seclusion to ignore the affairs of the world. The ancient Chaos Emperor wanted the blood essence to help Ning Fan cultivate his sovereign qi. Sovereign qi and sovereign shadow were one of the 3 great abilities of void fragmentation realm cultivators. Sovereign qi and sovereign shadow were indispensable things to become an immortal emperor. Many cultivators who had undergone the 5th tribulation of the ancient times had stopped at the immortal king realm because they could not cultivate enough sovereign qi. Sovereign qi was transformed from sovereign qi. The reason why he cultivated sovereign qi now was to prepare to become an immortal emperor in the future. As soon as Ning Fan entered the cave dwelling in the western world, he immediately sat cross-legged on a cushion and took out a jade bottle that contained the Divine Void Emperor's blood essence. After 3 months of refinement, there was only a trace of blood essence left in the jade bottle. Without any hesitation, Ning Fan pulled out the cork of the bottle and swallowed all of the remaining blood essence in it. Ning Fan closed his eyes. The top of his head trembled and a golden primordial spirit flew out of his body. Its appearance was exactly the same as Ning Fan's. The golden light on the primordial spirit was the color of sovereign aura. After refining the primordial spirit blood essence of Divine Emperor Shin Space, the appearance of Ning Fan's primordial spirit changed. It turned golden, just like a miniature version of the golden armored heavenly god. The golden primordial spirit sat cross-legged on top of Ning Fan's head, refining the immortal emperor's blood essence bit by bit. Gradually, the golden primordial spirit revealed a pained expression, but it gritted its teeth and endured it. Its body began to emit a golden mist. After an unknown period of time, the golden primordial spirit suddenly opened its eyes and shot out a beam of golden light. Once the golden light flew out, it immediately turned into a 150 feet long flying dragon made of royal aura. It hovered in the empty cave and let out a roar. A flying dragon of royal chi spanning 15 zhang. One wisp of sovereign chi was equivalent to 300 wisps of sovereign chi. Sensing the great increase in the power of the sovereign aura, the golden essence soul nodded in satisfaction. According to what Ning Fan knew, as long as one has 1,000 traces of emperor chi, one could condense the shadow of an emperor and attain the immortal emperor realm. 1,000 strands of emperor chi needed to be converted through 1,000 strands of sovereign chi. Even though Ning Fan only had one trace of sovereign chi, it was equivalent to 300 traces of sovereign chi for an ordinary person. If he can cultivate another 700 traces of sovereign chi in this life, he would not need to worry about the issue of the sovereign chi when he becomes an emperor anymore. The refinement of the dark time fruit required a long period of time. As for the primordial spirit and blood essence of divine emperor Shin space, they were completely refined by Ning Fan. After withdrawing the flying dragon with sovereign chi and his primordial spirit back into his body, Ning Fan opened his eyes and let out a long breath of turbid chi. The dark time fruit and the immortal emperor's blood essence had already been dealt with. Only the immortal bestowal tablet was left as a gift from ancient chaos. Ning Fan stood up and walked out of the cave. There was a huge monument outside the cave. It was the immortal bestowal monument. There were 152 words carved on the immortal bestowal monument. The 152nd word was rain. The engraving was slightly shallow. Because Ning Fan's injuries were too severe when he carved the words that day, he was already in a state of exhaustion. Thus, he only managed to trigger 40 traces of divine light from the monument. Since the divine light he triggered was not much, the divine ability that Ning Fan obtained from the monument was also not a powerful technique. There is a will inside the immortal bestowal monument. Therefore, this monument can bestow immortals and bestow divine abilities to others. My attack that day triggered 40 traces of divine light from the immortal bestowal monument. The divine ability that I obtained from it is called Rain Sealing Technique. It's a low-grade sealing technique which isn't very useful. Today, I wonder if I can obtain some divine abilities after I carve the word rain on this monument again. Ning Fan's eyes turned sharp. He displayed the first transformation of the war god art. As the flames of war burned, he turned into a red-haired, red-robed man. The ancient devil's cultivation base immediately skyrocketed. Under the fusion of his Dharma body, Ning Fan waved his hand and summoned the memory-severing Dao sword. He immediately slashed at the immortal bestowal monument and carved another rain character on the foundation of the original rain character. Bang! The sword light landed on the immortal bestowal monument and triggered 55 traces of divine light. Compared to Fairy Yuhan's 56 traces of divine light, it was still one less. As soon as the divine light appeared, a ray of light shot out from the immortal bestowal monument and entered Ning Fan's sea of consciousness. All of a sudden, a cultivation method of a divine ability appeared in Ning Fan's sea of consciousness. The name of the divine ability was Rain Qianben. It was an offensive divine ability that condensed rain into flying needles. To some early true crossing realm cultivators, it was considered a powerful offensive divine ability. However, to Ning Fan, this divine ability was not worth his attention. Again. Soul extraction. Ning Fan raised his hand and clawed at the ground. Even though there were no star souls in this place, there were endless souls of the earth for Ning Fan to extract. With Ning Fan's current cultivation base, he naturally could not extract all the souls of the earth in this medium realm. He could only extract 1/3 of the earth's souls. After devouring the earth's souls, Ning Fan's cultivation base rose tremendously. His peak ghost profound realm chi immediately rose to the early true crossing realm. He slashed at the immortal bestowal monument again. This time, he triggered 61 traces of divine light. The divine ability that he obtained was still not enough to satisfy him. It's still not enough. Su Dao's divine ability that day triggered a total of 75 traces of divine light. Ning Fan kept his memory severing Dao's sword and raised his palm. Heaven and earth immediately turned into darkness. Only the 7 stars were hanging high in the sky. 7 layers of palm imprints condensed on his palm, turning into a black and white palm imprint. Then, Ning Fan slammed it on the immortal bestowal monument. This palm imprint was Ning Fan's self-created heaven-holding imprint. Rumble, amidst the loud bang, 82 traces of divine light burst out from the immortal bestowal monument. At the same time, a message of the rain technique was transmitted into Ning Fan's sea of consciousness. 82 traces of divine light had already surpassed Su Dao's. However, the divine ability that he obtained was still not enough to satisfy him. His eyes flashed slightly. The Dao phenomenon between heaven and earth immediately dissipated. Then, waves of bleak west wind appeared between heaven and earth. Bleak shadows of leaves appeared in the vast sky. They were constantly being born and destroyed. All of a sudden, a murderous chi spread from the west wind. At this moment, Ning Fan pointed his finger. The word rain on the immortal bestowal monument was immediately eroded by the west wind. On the immortal bestowal monument, 99 traces of divine light flickered blindingly. One of them immediately fell into Ning Fan's sea of consciousness. Ning Fan's eyes showed a hint of seriousness for the first time. This time, he actually obtained 2 divine abilities. One of them was called Calling Wind, and the other was Summoning Rain. When Ning Fan used the west wind technique to carve the word rain, wind and rain merged into one. Thus, the immortal bestowal monument granted him 2 divine abilities. Calling Wind technique. Infuse the devil sense into the wind and condense the Yin wind into a black dragon. Summoning Rain technique. Transform the baleful chi into rain. 10 drops of baleful rain can kill a profound ghost. 100 drops of baleful rain can kill a profound ghost. 1,000 drops of baleful rain can even make Duzhen retreat. Ning Fan closed his eyes and pondered for a long time. Suddenly, he opened his eyes and pointed his finger at the sky. This finger was infused with the devil sense that he had spent his entire life. Immediately, Yin wind rose between heaven and earth. The Yin wind condensed into 2 black wind dragons. Gradually, the 3rd and 4th black dragons appeared one after another. All of them were formed by the Yin wind. With Ning Fan's innate potential of being one with heaven and man and his great 5 elements physique, he could comprehend and display the calling wind technique in a short period of time. As for the summoning rain technique, he wouldn't be able to display it without a few days of comprehension. Condensing 4 wind dragons was Ning Fan's current limit. The 4 black dragons materialized from the clouds and immediately let out a roar that shook the heaven and earth. Then, they fiercely crashed towards the immortal bestowal monument. As the Yin wind swept across, the plants on the ground immediately withered. Meanwhile, the immortal bestowal monument shone with 75 rays of divine light. Although the power of the calling wind technique of the 4 black dragons was not as powerful as the heaven-holding seal, it wasn't much weaker. The power of the summoning rain technique seems to be above the calling wind technique. I wonder if it's stronger than the heaven-holding seal. With 99 rays of divine light, I can obtain a powerful divine ability like summoning wind and summoning rain. I wonder what kind of divine ability I can obtain from the immortal bestowal monument if I incite more divine lights. Ning Fan's eyes turned solemn. The rain intent in his eyes flashed. Immediately, heavy rain poured down from heaven and earth like a waterfall. At this moment, Ning Fan's will was added to the rain and mist of heaven and earth. It was as if all the rain in this world had to obey his command. Yin Yang rain, unseal. The rain star on his glabella flashed. Ning Fan's aura suddenly skyrocketed, rising all the way to the peak of crossing true realm. Within 3 zhang, not a single drop of rain dared to touch Ning Fan's body. Ning Fan patted his sword pouch. Immediately, 5 rays of sword light soared into the sky and slashed at the immortal bestowal monument. At the moment when the 5 sword shadows slashed down, the rainstorm between heaven and earth actually stopped in the vast sky and became still. After the immortal bestowal monument was struck by the 5 rays of sword light, it immediately trembled violently and shot out 396 rays of divine light. After unsealing the yin-yang rain, the power of the 5 swords of rain was too terrifying. The word rain, which was deeper than any other words on the monument, was deeply engraved on the immortal bestowal monument. Hundreds of rays of light went into Ning Fan's sea of consciousness. All of them were divine abilities and secret techniques related to rain. There are actually so many of them. Ning Fan's eyes changed. Among these divine abilities, there were no lack of powerful techniques. What he did not know was that as long as he incited more than 300 rays of divine light, he would be able to obtain all the secret techniques related to the words carved on the monument. These divine abilities did not require any special cultivation. Ning Fan only needed to comprehend them. As long as he comprehended them, he could easily display these divine abilities with his yin-yang rain power. What if I engrave other words on it? Ning Fan's heart skipped a beat. If he engraved the words fire, lightning, and dark on this monument, would he also be able to obtain these divine abilities? Unfortunately, the immortal bestowal monument did not give him the chance to continue trying. After giving Ning Fan 100 divine abilities in one go, the light on the monument immediately dimmed. No matter how Ning Fan attacked, he could no longer trigger the divine light. Xiang Bozi's voice resounded in Ning Fan's ears. It was what he told Ning Fan when he passed the dark time fruit and the other items to him. If the divine light on the immortal bestowal monument disappears, it means that its power has been exhausted. It needs to be nourished in the godly void misty sea for 1,000 years before it can be used again. Hee. If that time comes, I'll have to trouble you to return the immortal bestowal monument to the merchant pavilion for nourishment. After 1,000 years, the power of the immortal bestowal monument will be replenished. If you want to use it again, you will naturally have the chance. Ning Fan smiled bitterly. It seemed like if he had the time, he would have to make a trip to the merchant pavilion and return the immortal bestowal monument to the godly void pavilion for nourishment. Anyway, he would have to go to the merchant pavilion sooner or later. Ning Fan did not forget that Xiang Bozi had given him a special privilege because of the name of Emperor Wangu. The privilege to take and use the cultivation resources of the godly void pavilion at will. Ning Fan naturally would not waste this privilege. Putting everything else aside, he would definitely take away all the supreme treasures like the Dao fruit. Before the night was over, Ning Fan returned to his bed. He hugged little Demonis and slept with his clothes on. When the sky turned bright, he walked out of the sleeping quarters, out of the area of the disciples' quarters of the General Pavilion, and flew towards the General Pavilion of the Eastern Ocean Stars Merchant Pavilion. Hee. Little Fan seems to have something else to do today. He won't torture me anymore. Finally, I can have a good rest. Looking at Ning Fan's back as he quietly left, little Demonis closed her eyes with a smile and continued to sleep. After being tormented by a certain wolf for 3 months, she could finally have a good sleep. The 4 pavilions of the Godly Void Pavilion were the Sect, Punishment, Military and Shang pavilions. The status of the Commercial Pavilion was the lowest among the 4 pavilions. However, it was the most indispensable pavilion. All the cultivation resources of the disciples of the 4 pavilions had to be collected from the Commercial Pavilion. The General Pavilion of the Commercial Pavilion was almost synonymous with the treasury of the Godly Void Pavilion. The foundation of the General Pavilion was not something that a Battle King Luo family could compare with, even if the Battle King Luo family was a super force that once had an immortal king. The Sea of Fog was where the General Pavilion of the Commercial Pavilion was located. At this moment, in the General Pavilion of the Commercial Pavilion, a few true Crossing Realm elders of the Commercial Pavilion were worrying about something. This isn't good. This isn't good. Dongming Island has sunk into the Sea of Fog again. This time, it actually sank into the 4th layer of the Sea of Fog. The 4th layer is a dangerous place that we, Duzhen, can't enter. Even old monster Shikong's cultivation base would be suppressed by 90% if he were to enter that place recklessly. This is troublesome. Do we have to ask a thought fragmentation realm cultivator to help us enter the 4th layer of the Sea of Fog and carry Dongming Island out? After the tomb competition, old monster Xin Yan will be busy repairing the Eastern Ocean bell. He won't have the time to care about the trivial matters of our pavilion. We can only rely on ourselves to find a way. If we don't let Dongming Island ascend to the second layer, we won't be able to open the treasury. There are many elite disciples of the pavilion waiting for us to send them their cultivation pills today. The few elders of the commercial pavilion who were frowning suddenly raised their heads at the same time, their faces filled with disbelief. As a ray of traveling light entered, the thick fog in the sky separated into two. The owner of the traveling light was a white-robed young man. It's the Rain Immortal Monarch. The few elders of the commercial pavilion immediately revealed a look of joy. They had heard that the Rain Immortal Monarch, Ning Fan, possessed abilities that could restrain rain and fog. If he was here, they might not need to ask old monster Xin Yan to help them and Dongming Island would be able to rise again. However, it was said that this Rain Immortal Monarch had a token that was given by a quasi-saint old ancestor. He could use the cultivation resources in the treasury at will. He probably won't take too many things with him this time. Probably. Chapter 851. Tens of millions of li of the main pavilion was shrouded in a sea of faint silver mist. This faint silver mist could obstruct the senses of spirit sense and reduce the speed of traveling light. To the merchant pavilion, it was a natural barrier. Most of the cultivators who came and went could only fly slowly in the mist. Even Life Immortal Realm experts could not spread their spirit sense across a large area in the mist. At the center of the mist was a huge whirlpool. Floating cities floated above the whirlpool. That was where the main pavilion was located. Below the whirlpool was the forbidden area in the depths of the mist. The mist on the ground was called the first layer of the mist by the cultivators of the pavilion. The density of the mist here was enough to obstruct the senses of Life Immortal Realm experts. Below the whirlpool, there was the second layer, the third layer, the fourth layer. As for how many layers there were, few people in the outside world knew about it. It was considered a secret of the Godly Void Pavilion. In the second layer of the mist, there was a floating island named Eastern Ming Island. There were 8 treasure vaults built on the island. Ning Fan walked in the mist at a moderate pace. Every step he took seemed to be stepping on the veins of the Tao law of rain and mist. As he arrived, the mist parted in 2 directions as if it was welcoming his arrival. Some cultivators along the way were shocked when they saw such a strange scene. However, when they saw Ning Fan walking in the mist, they felt relieved. The Rain Immortal Monarch Ning Fan had a mysterious ability that could make the rain and mist submit to him. Everyone in the Eastern Ming Star region knew about this. Every cultivator of the Godly Void Pavilion looked at Ning Fan with more or less respect. Some unmarried female cultivators looked at Ning Fan with admiration and shyness in their eyes. Ning Fan did not care about all of these. He flew all the way to the center of the mist and landed in the cultivation city where the main pavilion was located. The mist in this place was extremely thick. The air was moist but it gave off a feeling of stagnation. After landing in the cultivation city, Ning Fan did not stay for long. He took out the token that he had given to Bo Zi and sent an incantation seal towards the direction of the main pavilion to inform him of his arrival. Then, he immediately leaped into the whirlpool of the mist below. He had 2 purposes for coming here. One was to go to the treasure vault of Eastern Ming Island in the second layer of the mist to obtain the cultivation resources there. The second was to enter the 4th layer of the mist sea and place the immortal bestowal tablet in the tablet nurturing pond there for 1,000 years. To enter the treasury, one needed the merchant pavilion's pavilion master token. To enter the monument nurturing pool, one also needed the merchant pavilion's pavilion master token. Ning Fan did not have the pavilion lord token but he had the token that he had given to Bo Zi. The effect of this token was almost the same as the pavilion lord token. He could enter these forbidden areas at will. He was also free to use the cultivation resources in the merchant pavilion. Informing the merchant pavilion was just out of politeness. However, just as Ning Fan sent out the incantation gesture, 4 rays of light immediately flew out of the main pavilion and stopped him. Immortal Sir, please wait. The 4 elders have something to tell you. As soon as Ning Fan heard that, he immediately stopped falling and stopped in the vast misty sky. 4 rays of light approached from far away, and transformed into 4 old men, all of them were peak Duzhen cultivators. The 4 elders of Ci Ming greet the Rain Immortal Monarch. The 4 old monsters revealed a faint smile and cupped their fists at Ning Fan. Ning Fan was slightly stunned. Then, he cupped his fists to return the greeting and asked with a surprised tone. Elders, may I know why you stopped me? Ning Fan had stayed in the merchant pavilion for 3 months. He had heard of the 4 elders of Ci Ming. Currently, all of the experts in the commercial pavilion who were at the level of Shikong and above were busy repairing the heaven-suppressing bell. They had no time to take care of the mundane affairs. Thus, the 4 of them became the people in charge of the general pavilion. Ning Fan naturally would not neglect them. He. I am Sun Ci. These 3 are fellow Taoist Xiao Mingzi, fellow Taoist Wu Wangsun and fellow Taoist Chu Dongting. The 4 of us are the people in charge of the merchant pavilion. The reason why we stopped you is because we have a request. Among the 4 of them, an old Taoist with gray hair explained to Ning Fan with a faint smile. Oh. Elder Sun, what request do you have? Ning Fan's eyes flashed and asked. Given his personality, he would naturally not agree to other people's request easily. However, there was no harm in listening. He. Immortal Monarch, you must be here to enter the treasury of Eastern Ming Island, right? Sun Ci asked with a smile. That's right. To tell you the truth, something has happened to the treasury of Eastern Ming Island recently. Sun Ci smiled bitterly, took out a jade slip and passed it to Ning Fan. The jade slip contained part of his spirit sense. It recorded the incident of Eastern Ming Island sinking into the 4th level of the Sea of Mist. Ning Fan received the jade slip and sent his spirit sense into it. After a long time, he withdrew his spirit sense and frowned slightly. He really came at a bad time. The Eastern Ming Island that had always been floating in the 2nd level of the Sea of Mist had actually sunk into the 4th level last night. Is Elder Sun's request related to this matter? Ning Fan asked. Exactly. I heard that Immortal Monarch's abilities are astonishing. Your abilities can restrain rain and mist in many ways. Therefore, I would like to ask Immortal Monarch to enter the 4th level and move Eastern Ming Island back to the 2nd level. The power of mist in the 4th level is too strong. Even peak true crossing realm cultivators like me can't enter it. Even if we are void-shedding realm cultivators, our cultivation base will be suppressed by 90% if we enter recklessly, making it very difficult for us to move Eastern Ming Island back to the 2nd level. If it wasn't because I sensed Immortal Monarch's arrival, I would have already sent someone to the heavenly prison to ask for Senior Swan Nian's help. I hope Immortal Monarch can lend me a hand and help the merchant pavilion move back to Eastern Ming Island. Take this as a token of my gratitude. I hope Immortal Monarch won't leak the information contained in this item. Sun Ci smiled bitterly, took out another jade slip and passed it to Ning Fan. Elder Sun seems to have a lot of confidence in me. He actually entrusted me with something that only old monster Swan Nian could do. Ning Fan could not help but laugh, thinking that Sun Ci really thought highly of him. When he received the 2nd jade slip and scanned it with his spirit sense, his eyes immediately moved. The 2nd jade slip was Sun Ci's gift of gratitude. It actually recorded one of the greatest secrets of the Godly Void Pavilion, the secrets about the Misty Sea. Very few cultivators from the outside world knew about these secrets. Usually, only a few old monsters of the Godly Void Pavilion knew about them. Ning Fan kept the jade slip. When he looked at Sun Ci again, his eyes were 30% playful and 70% solemn. Elder Sun, you have given me such a generous gift. I don't know how to repay you. Ning Fan looked at Sun Ci with a faint smile. Ha! Even if I don't give you this information, I'm afraid there are many people who would be willing to give it to Immortal Monarch in order to befriend you. Sun Ci laughed heartily. Fine. Since I have already accepted Elder Sun's gift, I will do my best to move the Eastern Ming Island back to the 2nd level. Farewell. Ning Fan gave Sun Ci a deep look. His figure flashed and flew towards the whirlpool of the misty sea. The second jade slip that Sun Si gave him recorded the secret information about the misty sea. There were only 200 to 300 people in the Godly Void Pavilion who were qualified to know this information. The misty sea was an ancient secret place. It had a total of 9 levels. It was a cave residence left behind by the Eastern Sky Ancestral Emperor, the Eastern Demonic Ancestor. The first level of the misty sea was on the ground. The remaining 8 levels were in the Earth Abyss world under the whirlpool. The second to fourth levels could only be used for defense. It could not be used for cultivation. It was the floating place of the Eastern Ming Island. The spiritual qi in the 5th to 8th levels was extremely dense. It was only slightly weaker than the heavenly prison. It was the cultivation place of many old monsters in the Godly Void Pavilion. The 9th level was where the cave residence of the Eastern Demonic Ancestor was located. There were no items in it except for some strange inscriptions. The words on the inscriptions were ancient and difficult to read. No one could understand them. No one knew what the Eastern Demonic Ancestor had written in his cave residence. These were the information that Sun Si gave to Ning Fan. Ning Fan was quite interested in the cave residence of the Eastern Demonic Ancestor. If he had the strength to enter the 9th level of the Misty Sea, he would definitely enter the cave residence to have a look no matter what. Elder Sun, why did you give the information about the cave residence of the Eastern Demonic Ancestor to Rain Immortal Monarch? Could it be that you think he has the ability to enter the 9th level of the Sea of Mist? The elder who was called Wu Wangsun asked in confusion after Ning Fan left. He, fellow Taoist Wu must be joking. How can this old man hope that the Rain Immortal Monarch can enter the 9th level? Throughout history, only the Divine Void Emperor and the Divine Void Emperor could enter the 9th level. Not even the Immortal Kings could enter the 9th level. The pressure is too strong. Only the 10,000 ancient immortal venerables could enter the 8th level. Only the Broken Thoughts Old Monster could enter the 7th level. Given the Rain Immortal Monarch's ability to restrain the rain, he would most likely reach the 6th level. To him, the 6th floor is the best place to cultivate. This old man gave him this jade slip because I hope to be a step ahead and tell him this secret. This can be considered as sowing good karma. Sun Si smiled and returned to the general pavilion with the other 3 elders. The 4 of them did not think that Ning Fan could enter the 6th floor and below. However, all of them were certain that Ning Fan had the ability to teleport back to Eastern Ming Island. They did not think that they had underestimated Ning Fan, but unfortunately, it seemed like they had underestimated him. Once Ning Fan entered the whirlpool of the Sea of Mist, he would be considered to have entered the 2nd level of the Sea of Mist. The mist in the 2nd level of the Sea of Mist was naturally denser than that on the ground. At this level, even a cultivator of the Duzhen realm would not be able to exert his full strength. Both his cultivation base and spirit sense would be greatly suppressed. On the 2nd level, there were even a few mist beasts. These mist beasts had low intelligence and their cultivation base was also low. At most, they were at the Divine Transformation realm. Ning Fan had cultivated the Yin-Yang realm of rain. His body had nurtured a trace of Palm realm power, which greatly restrained the rain and mist. When he entered the 2nd level, he naturally did not feel any suppression. On the contrary, his arrival made some of the mist beasts hiding in the thick mist shiver in fear. In the eyes of those mist beasts with low intelligence, Ning Fan was not a cultivator at all. He was clearly a drop of rain, a drop of Tao law that could control all rain and mist in this world. With their low cultivation base, Ning Fan could eliminate their existence with just a single thought. They were extremely afraid of Ning Fan. Is this the place where Eastern Ming Island was previously floating? Ning Fan stopped at a certain place on the 2nd level and spread his spirit sense far away. In the thick mist here, there were obviously traces of a formation that was set up by someone. It should be the original location of Eastern Ming Island. As long as I enter the 4th level and move Eastern Ming Island back to this place, I will be able to fulfill Sun Si's request. Ning Fan's eyes flashed and he immediately flew downwards. In front of him, 2 petite mist beasts suddenly appeared and bumped into his body inadvertently. These two mist beasts were only the size of a fist. Their cultivation base was only at the harmonious spirit realm. They were originally chasing each other and having fun. However, due to a moment of carelessness, they bumped into Ning Fan, a peerless ominous star. One of the mist beasts had sharp fingernails. It actually left a bloody mark on Ning Fan's face. When the two mist beasts with low intelligence realized that they had made a huge mistake, their hair stood on end and their bodies trembled. Their eyes were filled with fear and uneasiness. Even though their intelligence was low, they understood how dangerous it was for them to scratch Ning Fan's face. It was highly possible that they would be killed by Ning Fan, who was the nemesis of the Yu Wu clan, with just a single thought. Mist beasts, huh? Ning Fan's eyes briefly swept across the two mist beasts. He touched the bloody mark on his face with his palm. Black starlight flashed and the wound immediately disappeared. When he looked at the two little beasts again, his eyes were filled with curiosity, contemplation, and surprise. However, there was no killing intent. He wasn't a bloodthirsty person. He wouldn't act recklessly just because of the unintentional mistake of these little beasts. The only thing that surprised him was that the sharp claws of these mist beasts were actually able to break through the defense of his heavenly devil physical body and leave a bloody mark on his face. The reason why he was injured was not because of how sharp the claws of these two little beasts were. Instead, it was because their claws had unintentionally triggered a trace of the great force of heaven and earth, breaking through the defense of his heavenly devil physical body. Don't be afraid. You two can leave now. Ning Fan casually waved his hand. Immediately, a gust of wind emerged from his sleeve and sent the two beasts a great distance away. Rain intent flashed in his eyes. His spirit sense immediately merged with all the thick mist in the second level of the Sea of Mist. When he closed his eyes, Ning Fan could clearly see all the hidden mist beasts in this place with his spirit sense. The cultivation base of these mist beasts might be low, but they could more or less trigger a trace of the power of the great force. Even though the amount of power they could trigger was not much, it was enough for them to protect themselves when facing powerful cultivators, trigger the power of the great force. Is this the innate ability that the mist beasts in this place are born with? Ning Fan's eyes turned slightly solemn and he remained silent. After a long time, he finally rolled up his traveling light again and flew towards the lower level. In the third level of the Sea of Mist, 90% of a cultivator's cultivation base would be suppressed once they enter this place. However, this level could not stop Ning Fan's speed at all. In the fourth level of the Sea of Mist, even if a cultivator were to enter this level, his cultivation base would still be suppressed by 90%. However, when he arrived at this level, Ning Fan's cultivation base did not show any signs of being suppressed at all. He was a cultivator of the yin-yang rain technique. His body contained a trace of the power of the rain palm. He was the only one who could suppress the rain mist. How could he be suppressed by the rain mist? In the fourth level of the Sea of Mist, the Eastern Ocean Island had already sunk all the way to the bottom. There was a barrier of formation light at the bottom of the fourth level. It separated any cultivators who tried to enter the fifth level. This barrier of formation light was extremely powerful. Only cultivators who had mastered the finger seals of passage could pass through it and enter the fifth level. Sun Si had told Ning Fan about the finger seals of passage through the jade slip. Without the finger seals of passage, even if Ning Fan was a thought fragmentation cultivator, he would not be able to pass through this barrier easily. After being blocked by this barrier of formation light, the island naturally sank to the bottom and could not continue to descend to the fifth level. Looking at the gigantic island in front of him and the 8 treasure vaults on it, Ning Fan remained silent for a while. Then, he formed a hand seal and directly used the teleportation technique. Immediately, the gigantic island flashed and disappeared. It disappeared from the fourth level and directly appeared on the second level. Ning Fan had actually sent this island back to the second level with a single teleportation technique. He was not in a hurry to enter the treasure vaults of the island to obtain the treasures. At this moment, he was more interested in the demon ancestor's immortal cave in the 9th level of the Sea of Mist. At the moment when the island returned to its original position, Sun Xiai and the others who were far away in the main pavilion of the merchant pavilion smiled knowingly and sighed in admiration. As expected, Ning Fan did not disappoint them and moved the island back to its original position. After moving the island back to its original position, Ning Fan's figure flashed and flew towards the other direction of the fourth level. In that direction, there was an immortal pond that was sealed by a concealment formation. It was the tablet nurturing pond. Using the token to open the formation light, Ning Fan reluctantly placed the immortal bestowal tablet into the pond to nourish it. After sealing the formation light again, he turned around and left. Once its energy is exhausted, it would need 1,000 years to nourish it. Within 1,000 years, Ning Fan would not be able to use the immortal bestowal tablet again. I'll temporarily return this item to the Godly Void Pavilion to nourish it. After leaving the tablet nurturing pond, Ning Fan immediately used the finger seals of passage to enter the 5th level of the Sea of Mist. As soon as he entered the 5th level, the 26 old monsters who were cultivating there opened their eyes one after another and looked towards Ning Fan's direction as if they had sensed something. Among these old monsters who were cultivating there, the weakest cultivation base was at the early shedding void realm while the strongest one was even at the late shedding void realm. Those who cultivated here were all old monsters of the Godly Void Pavilion who stayed in seclusion all year round. They never cared about the rumors in the outside world and only focused on cultivating. The task that the Godly Void Pavilion gave them was only to cultivate. In time, they would become the peak strength of the next generation of the Godly Void Pavilion. What? Peak Ghost Profound Realm. How could this be? How could a cultivator at the peak of the Ghost Mystic Realm have the ability to enter the 5th layer of the Sea of Fog? Could it be that this person had concealed his cultivation? Humph, you're just deliberately mystifying us. I can't see clearly. The fog here is too thick. Even I, old monster Shikong, can only spread my spirit sense 1,000 feet away. My eyesight can only penetrate a few feet. I can't see this person's appearance clearly, but his chi is a little unfamiliar. Is he the old monster Shikong who has just joined the Godly Void Pavilion? In the 5th level of the Sea of Fog, there are only 26 spots with the best spiritual chi. Once he arrives, he will definitely compete with one of us for the seclusion cave abode. When they thought about this, the expressions of the 26 Shikong old monsters who were cultivating in seclusion changed. Looking at Ning Fan's expression, there was a hint of hostility. What surprised them was that Ning Fan did not stay on the 5th floor for a long time. He also did not have the intention to fight for the 26 abodes on the 5th floor. As soon as he entered the 5th level, Ning Fan immediately flew towards the 6th level without stopping. What? This person actually wanted to go to the 6th floor. Don't tell me he's actually at the peak of the Renhuang Void Realm. If one enters the 6th level without a peak Renhuang Void Realm cultivation base, he or she will be directly repelled by the power of the fog. All the Shikong old monsters who were cultivating in seclusion on the 5th level were shocked. Under the gazes of the crowd, Ning Fan directly dashed into the 6th layer of the Sea of Mist. He was not repelled at all. This person is indeed a peak Renhuang Void Realm cultivator. No. Even if a peak Renhuang Void Realm cultivator enters the 6th level cautiously, it definitely won't be as easy as him. Could it be that he's actually a thought-breaking old monster? The 26 old monsters guessed. In the 6th level of the Sea of Fog, the fog was no longer silver. Instead, it was light red like vermilion. In the 6th level of the Sea of Fog, there were a total of 14 innately formed cave abodes with red fog. Only 2 of these cave abodes were empty. The remaining 12 cave abodes were all occupied by peak Renhuang Void Realm cultivators. At the moment when Ning Fan arrived, the 12 peak Renhuang Void Realm cultivators opened their eyes at the same time. Peak Ghost Profound Realm? No, it should be a peak Renhuang Void Realm cultivator who has concealed his cultivation base. Is this fellow Taoist also here to cultivate? Fortunately, there are still 2 empty cave abodes on this level. There won't be any fights over the cave abodes. These old monsters made up their minds and closed their eyes, entering a state of cultivation again. A few breaths later, these old monsters opened their eyes at the same time. They walked out of their cave abodes and looked towards the direction of the 7th level. Under their incredulous gazes, Ning Fan stepped into the 7th level of the Sea of Fog. This person is actually a thought-breaking old monster. There's no doubt about it. Someone who can enter the 7th level must be a thought-breaking old monster. The spiritual chi in the 7th level of the Sea of Fog is 3 times that of the 6th level. The speed of cultivation in that level is extremely fast. The 12 Peak Renhuang Void Realm cultivators revealed looks of envy at the same time. They were envious that Ning Fan could enter the 7th level to cultivate. In the 7th level of the Sea of Fog, Ning Fan finally felt that it was difficult to move forward. Even though he had already cultivated the Yin-Yang Rain technique, the seal on it had yet to be lifted. When he reached this level, his cultivation base was almost completely suppressed by the power of the fog. The fog of the 7th level was black in color. Within the black fog, there were a total of 9 cave abodes that were faintly discernible. Out of the 9 cave abodes, 4 of them were empty while the remaining 5 were occupied by thought-breaking cultivators. Among the 5 of them, 4 of them were at the early spirit severing realm and 1 of them was at the mid-spirit severing realm. The moment Ning Fan arrived, the 5 of them opened their eyes at the same time. However, after shaking their heads slightly, they closed their eyes again. As soon as this person entered the 7th level, his cultivation base was completely suppressed and he couldn't move even half a step. Judging from this person is most likely a cultivator who has just stepped into the thought fragmentation realm and his cultivation base hasn't stabilized yet. It's a pity that a thought fragmentation cultivator whose cultivation base hasn't stabilized can't cultivate in this level. After this person has suffered enough, he will most likely return to the 6th floor by himself. However, to their disbelief, Ning Fan did not return to the 6th floor. A few breaths later, the seal on Ning Fan's glabella was lifted. His body suddenly erupted with an unimaginable power of rain mist. At this moment, the power of mist in the entire 7th layer seemed to be obeying Ning Fan's command. As soon as Ning Fan released the power of yin and yang, he immediately ignored all the power of mist and dashed towards the 8th layer of the Sea of Mist. All of a sudden, the 5 memory breaker old monsters stood up in shock and looked in the direction of the 8th floor in disbelief. 10,000 Ancient Immortal Sovereign. This person was actually an ancient celestial sovereign. If not, it's impossible for him to enter the 8th layer of the Sea of Mist. The chi of this ancient celestial sovereign is so unfamiliar. Even if we have been in seclusion here for millions of years, it's impossible for us not to recognize this person. Could it be that this person has just advanced to the immortal venerable realm? This question arose not only in the minds of the 5 memory breaker old monsters on the 7th floor but also in the minds of the 4 ancient celestial sovereigns on the 8th floor. There were a total of 5 cave dwellings on the 8th floor. However, there were only 3 ancient celestial sovereigns who were in seclusion here. When the 3 ancient celestial sovereigns saw Ning Fan, they immediately walked out of their cave dwellings and greeted him with cupped fists politely. Fellow Taoist, you look unfamiliar. Are you a new immortal venerable? How should I address you? Junior Ning Fan greets the 3 immortal venerables. Since the 3 immortal venerables treated him politely, Ning Fan naturally would not be arrogant and returned their greetings politely. As soon as they heard Ning Fan addressing himself as a junior, the 3 immortal venerables were stunned. After pondering for a while, they thought that Ning Fan had probably just advanced to the immortal venerable realm and had yet to adapt to his new identity. That was why he addressed himself as a junior. The 3 of them were not arrogant either. They had already recognized Ning Fan as an ancient celestial sovereign. Thus, they naturally addressed him as a fellow Taoist. After exchanging some pleasantries, Ning Fan also learned the names of the 3 ancient celestial sovereigns. Among the 3 immortal venerables, one of them was an old man in black robes. His name was Immortal Venerable Cloud Thunder and he had the cultivation base of the 2nd Eternal Tribulation. As for the other 2 immortal venerables, they both had the cultivation base of the 1st Eternal Tribulation. After a brief introduction, the 3 immortal venerables returned to their respective cave dwellings and continued their secluded cultivation. Ning Fan did not choose a cave dwelling on the 8th floor to cultivate. His purpose of coming here was to enter the demon ancestors' cave dwelling on the 9th floor. Sensing that Ning Fan was heading straight for the 9th floor, Immortal Venerable Cloud Thunder and the others smiled faintly without saying anything. Any immortal venerables or immortal kings who had the ability to enter the 8th floor would certainly try to enter the 9th floor out of curiosity. Unfortunately, only the Divine Void Sovereign Realm and Divine Void Sovereign Realm had the strength to enter the 9th floor. Even if an immortal king who had the 5th eternal tribulation tried to enter the 9th floor recklessly, he would only end up being repelled. All of them had tried to enter the 9th floor before. Unfortunately, with their immortal venerables cultivation base, they could not succeed. In their opinion, Ning Fan certainly would not be able to enter the 9th floor. After all, he was just a newly advanced immortal venerable. Although it sounded nice to say a newly advanced immortal venerable, it was actually a zero tribulation immortal venerable who had never experienced the baptism of the cataclysm. The first eternal tribulation was not the weakest realm among the immortal venerables. The weakest realm was a zero tribulation immortal venerable. To put it nicely, it was a newly advanced immortal venerable. I wonder how many breaths this person can last in the 9th floor. In the past, when I had just stepped into the eternal tribulation realm, I had also tried to enter the 9th floor. However, I only lasted for 3 breaths before I was repelled. Immortal Venerable Cloud Thunder muttered to himself. 1 breath, 2 breaths, 3 breaths. After 10 breaths, Ning Fan still had not been repelled. The expressions of the 3 immortal venerables began to lose their composure. 20 breaths, 30 breaths, 40 breaths. After 100 breaths, Ning Fan still had not returned to the 8th floor. The expressions of the 3 immortal venerables had turned into shock and horror. In the end, Ning Fan was not repelled by the mist power of the 9th floor. Immortal Venerable Cloud Thunder and the others sucked in a cold breath and looked at the 9th floor in disbelief. Could it be that fellow Taoist Ning is not a newly advanced immortal venerable but an immortal emperor? If that's not the case, how could he have the strength to enter the 9th floor? He is actually an immortal emperor. Since when did such a great sovereign appear in Eastern Heaven?